Yes, I'm here.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. Hope you find yourselves doing well tonight, and happy Saturday. So, ran across this case with Robert L. Snow. To give a little bit of background on him, he is a former or retired homicide detective, police captain, and he ended up on a dare going to get a past life regression from a colleague who did this on the side, quote unquote, for fun. And well, he ended up backing into his past life and was able to back it up with some evidence, and ended up finding out he was a painter by the names of James Carroll Beckwith. And also wanted to add that we have Dan with us today from the Overwatch channel and OverWatchProject.com. We just decided to do this last minute. Dan's going to be joining us for about a half hour or so tonight. And Dan, welcome back, man. Good to have you with us.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Sorry I can't stay longer, but like I told you, one of my two dogs isn't feeling well. I have to keep an eye on.
It's no problem. And if you got to run early or something, just let me know. No big deal. Yeah, great to have you. So, yeah, so you got a little bit of a heads up on this case and got to listen to some of it. So, yeah, let's just dive right into it because I want to be able to enjoy as much time with you as possible tonight. So, all right, so just to give a heads up, the channel name is Passion Harvest, which I find funny that's a name, but, you know, much respect to the creator of the channel. I was speaking with Wayne, and Dan, I don't know if I mentioned this, but it looks like Wayne is going to go on her show. So, you know, perhaps she's open-minded to all this. For her to have Wayne on, I think that's awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. And so... yeah, there's about a minute and a half introduction to this, so check out the channel Passion Harvest. There's a lot of good interviews for experiencer over there to do your own research with. So let's roll.
Passion Harvest.
Okay. You want me to start, Wayne? I mean, Mark?
Hello, passionate listeners and
right
watchers.
Can you hear it or
Welcome
no?
to Passion Harvest.
no.
I'll do a screen share
host,
for you.
International Passion Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining me, us, wherever you are in the world.
Sorry,
I can't wait to speak to our guest today. His name is Robert L. Snow.
Now I can...
And if you don't know who he is, Robert L. Snow is a veteran police detective who had a vivid memory as living a former life as Carroll Beckwith. Robert Snow was devoted to evidence and hard facts. He had never given any thought to reincarnation.
Sorry, guys. Dan, I'm getting a little feedback. You got headphones, buddy?
During a hypnotic regression, he experienced a vivid awareness of being alive in 3 separate historical scenes. Remaining skeptical, he began to investigate with the intention of disproving reincarnation. Instead, diligent research and corroboration from multiple sources revealed solid evidence that he had lived a former life as Carroll Beckwith, a 19th century American artist. His book, Portrait of a Past Life Skeptic, tells a fascinating story of Robert Snow's transformation from skeptic to believer. Robert L. Snow served for 38 years at the Indianapolis Police Department, retiring in 2007 with the rank of captain. While at the police department, he served in such capacities as police department executive officer, captain of detectives, and commander of the homicide branch. Robert has been a publishing writer for over 30 years with 20 published books and over 100 articles and short stories published. This is his story and this is his passion. Bob or Robert, welcome to Passion Harvest.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. I was so excited after I read your diary. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. I know you talk about being a skeptic, but I'd love to hear briefly about how it started in your past life regression session.
Well, it's kind of started as a dare, kind of an accident. Besides being a police officer, actually, I was a police officer for 38 years, but I really never wanted to be one. That's never occurred to me when I was growing up. I kind of fell into it by accident. I was in the Air Force during the Vietnam War, and when I got discharged, I come home and I need a job. And my brother was a police officer in that police department. And he said, at this time, of course, the Vietnam War was still going on, and they were desperate for officers. And so I went down and just applied because I needed a job.
Yeah.
Actually, what I always wanted to be, rather than a police officer, I wanted to be a writer. My whole life, that's all I ever wanted to be, was a writer. And I thought, well, being a police officer would certainly give you ample material to work with as a writer.
Now, like really quickly, something I found interesting is that Dan, is his former life, he was a painter, so it's more creative. In this life, he is more into writing. His heart's in writing. So, excuse me, both things are more like a creative outlet. So, I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Found it interesting.
Yeah, Mark. I see he starts off as a skeptic. It's always great when one of these skeptics finds out that, I managed to watch 20 minutes of this interview you're playing right now. So I didn't see the whole thing because I didn't find out about it until, late tonight. But the thing is that, in Western's culture, reincarnation is kind of like a thing that's been purged out of the if you fall into the materialist side, it doesn't exist because you don't believe in anything spiritual. And if you fall into any of the major religions, it's been removed from those religions. So if you're one of the main religions, you don't have it as part of your even belief system.
Yeah, and that's a really, really important part of all this. And excuse me, it's funny because you had kind of the same background, granted a little different, but I mean, still, you were a detective yourself in the force and ended up investigating this like a detective would, and he did the exact same thing.
Yeah, I was never actually ranked detective. I didn't want to do that. I didn't kiss ass, so I never got promoted. I investigated a lot of crimes. I still solved a lot of crimes. I found out that, a lot of these people have really big egos, and sometimes they didn't want to be shown up by anybody they saw that was beneath them. So you would give them information that turned out later to be relevant, but at the time they dismissed you because, you weren't at their level, so to speak. So there was a lot of politics and stuff like that.
Of course.
The reincarnation thing, I think a lot of people deep down know that it happens, even if they don't research it or it's not part of their belief system, because people will just make comments about it in casual conversation sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll say, well, maybe next lifetime, or they'll say maybe that was from a last lifetime or something like that. So
that's a good
the
point.
subconscious knows the truth, even though they're consciously have been probably, obviously this guy was able to go back to, I saw the part where he starts off as basically a caveman.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then and then the one case he hits on is that painter, and the whole story, the way it unravels is crazy. And going back to the politics part, just really quickly before we continue, that you dealt with, he dealt with the same thing, but it was, the end of his career, and he put out the book, and, and they, the force didn't really like it. Some of the people did, but, of course, the top brass, weren't too happy with his name being attached to the book.
I know, isn't it weird?
So he got shit on.
Yeah, some of these some police departments actually openly use psychics, right?
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on who's running the show in these places. But he also said he was a woman once.
Yep.
Yeah, so I find that really fascinating when people do that, when they're flip flopping.
Yeah, but different
through
sexes.
A lifetime. Yeah, with different. So this guy's been around a while, since he's been here since history, right?
Yeah, whatever that is.
I guess he never stopped learning.
No, he's still got a ways to go. Hopefully not, though. All right.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Let's continue.
Okay.
But people don't realize being a writer, you don't just write all the time. You also have to read. You have to read from various different sources, because being a writer, you have to see how other people handle material. In other words, if you see a passage that's really clever and really good, you want to analyze it and see how they did it, and vice versa. If something really poorly written, you want to make sure you don't do that. But so in my process of being a writer, I've also been a reader. Well, one time I was belonged to a book club, and I saw a book they were offering. It was called Coming Back by Dr. Raymond Moody. And it was apparently, according to the purpose, Dr. Moody had done a number of investigations into near-death experiences and what have you. So I bought the book and read it. It was kind of interesting. He had a friend who was a psychiatrist who did past life regression therapy, and she wanted Raymond, the author of the book, to do it. So he allowed himself to be hypnotized, and she supposedly took him back to 8 past lives and all that. He talked. The book was well written and was, very good book. But at the very end, when he talked about what it really meant, he kind of hedged and said, I don't know if this is really true past lives or just my imaginations, my subconscious, mind bringing up stuff. And that's kind of the way I felt about it.
Now, Dan, I got to ask you, how did you feel about it? Because I felt the same way as he did. About regressions. Like, what were your thoughts on them? Because I was weaving in and out of them, but I was really trying to stay away from them because I didn't like the hypnosis aspect of things. But, the patterns don't lie. That's kind of how I look at it. Even if there are people embellishing or making things up, just like all the NDEs, they're not all lying, I mean.
Yeah, right. Sure. Our even out-of-body experiencers, they can insert things from a dream state and blend it in with their OBE. So sometimes you get a little confusing information there. But honestly, the cases that are important are the ones that can be verified.
Yep.
And there's many of those. That's why it's hilarious when people say there's no proof of this. Well, of course, there's never any proof if you don't want the proof. There's never, proof.
You're not going to find it. Yeah. You got the cognitive dissonance running through your veins. You're not going to get there. And then, of course, the people be like, oh, well, it's everyone thinks they're Cleopatra in their past life. It's the most ignorant comment ever.
That one really irritates me because clearly it shows that A, they never researched reincarnation. B, they obviously don't even know what they're talking about. Everybody does not. Everybody has the average person has pretty mundane lives. I mean, some of them are exciting. They're in wars. They're in some kind of life and death struggle. But, some people obviously get phobias because they drown to death. So they're scared of water now.
Yeah.
Not everybody's Cleopatra or Julius Caesar or
George Washington.
Like I told you, I have what is probably a past life memory of being in America during the Revolutionary War, but I was a nobody. The only thing that's known about, I managed to find my grave marker. That's the name I remembered. So I know the person actually existed. There isn't a lot of information about them because they're not a historical figure.
And that's what I think most of us our lives would back into. Just some schmo, we just did whatever, maybe there's a little bit of a record here and there, but lucky of that. I know the ones I've looked into and there's no record, but they resonate deeply with me. So yeah, I know it did the same with you.
Did Michael Newton have a lot of verification? I wasn't sure about that. I went through his books and I listened to your analysis of his books.
There were some, and also, what's his name? There were some with, I believe, Brian Weiss. There were some with Dolores Cannon too. But overall, like big picture, not as many as we would hope. But again, like it's kind of they exist, they're out there. We know that there's enough cases that, that it proves that there's something rotten going on and that there's these patterns. So, even if you just say, hey, 20-30% could be crossing over with dreams or even some manipulation, sure, you could then include, even if you can even say 60%, I guess 50-50. I mean, there's still enough there to prove that there's this massive connection between all this. And the good thing I liked about what I really liked about Newton is he, as you listened and read his books, he didn't put there's barely any leading questions. That is what I really like about it. What I don't like is his, endless need to insert his bullshit narrative. And that's where the problem comes in. But as far as like the actual case, he's not leading people, which is, to me, a good sign of a solid regression.
Right.
So
Yeah, I
that's
noticed
my
that
opinion on
too.
it.
Yeah, I noticed that too when I was reading his books. What's neat about the insertion thing you were talking about is that virtually everybody does it when they're telling you. What I started to notice in near-death experiences, everybody's telling you what happened, but they're also telling you their interpretation of what happened,
Exactly.
and whatever formula or cosmology they subscribe to. So
Mm-hmm.
if a Christian has a near-death experience, it's going to be either they'll try to make it Christian, or it will have appeared Christian to them, or they'll get some kind of answer when they ask the question, like, "Oh, this isn't how I was told it was supposed to be," and they'll get some kind of they'll actually get an answer of, "Oh, well, that's because of this and that,"
Yeah.
some BS.
Exactly.
And that works with all different belief systems.
Yeah, it's
Whatever.
molded and crafted to the individual. Yep.
It's almost like immediate death customer service doesn't always greet you the right way, so they have to adjust on the fly sometimes.
Yeah. All right, let's roll on.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't think about it, went on to other reading. Well, a couple of months later, I was at a party. My wife was also a police officer, and she was a child abuse detective, and her office was giving a party. And so I was at the party, and there was a woman there. She was was also a police detective, but she was at the same time a practicing psychologist. And so we were talking, about various things, just making chit chat about movies we'd seen and television shows. And we got around the books we read, and I remembered this book. And I told her about this book I had read. And she asked me what I thought about it. And I told her I thought it was just mostly a bunch of rubbish. This is just people are trying to find some excuse in this life for their bad luck or their misfortune. And so I said, again, it's just people looking for excuse, say, well, this is karma from a bad past life and what have you. And actually, it was kind of late in the party, and I'd had a bit to drink, and I think I really belittled it so much that she got kind of, not angry, but kind of a little irritated. I mean, I didn't realize at the time that she used past life regression in her practice.
Right.
So anyway, finally she kind of dared me. She says, "Well, if you think it's a silly, try it yourself and see." And I first said, "No, I'm not going to do that. No." Then she goes, "Oh, you're scared." Nah, you don't want to ask a man if he's scared, or especially a police officer.
Then you have to do it.
I finally agreed to do it. But then the next day, after sobering up and feeling a little more clear-headed, I said, "I'm not doing this. This is stupid. I'm not going to do it. It was foolishness." But every time I'd run into this lady, the detective psychologist, she'd ask me, "Have you made the appointment?" Because she had given me the name and number of a friend of hers who also did past life regression, and suggested I go to her to try it out. And I'd always make some kind of excuse. Now, I had 2 meetings and I had to get the report ready, and I'm going to do it. But the funny thing is, I hadn't run into this woman. I'd run into her at the most once a month before this. It seemed like after this, every day I'd see her somewhere, and it's got, oh God, you see her there, oh God, you're going to have to make some other excuse again. And it seemed like I couldn't avoid her. I just every day it seemed like I'd see her walk down the hall, and I know she's going to ask me. So finally, I
So, I mean, isn't that interesting, Dan? Like he feels like, oh, he's just being, it's persistent. That, you know, it's almost, it's like this destiny thing almost, that he is meant to get this done. And then of course everything unravels and he ends up what? Writing a book. And we can even go a step further and say, well, is that the Matrix marketing department knocking on his door saying, hey, you know, pay attention? Life script for you. What do you think?
Maybe, yeah. I find it interesting that people have like these. So you pass on, then you get whenever it happens after so much time, you have this lure or something, or somebody talks you back into coming back here, and you go through this amnesia process, and now you start off. I mean, if this was like a video game, that'd be neat, right? If I could go into a video game temporarily and know that as soon as I come
Yeah.
back out, I get all my memories back, and it was fun. I did it once. I don't have to do it again. But it seems like the system just doesn't want to let you go. Once you get sucked in, it wants to keep you here, like a parasite.
Yep.
And yeah, so I mean, he was an artist. Now he's a writer, and a detective. And at some point, he was a caveman. And in that life, he said, what did he say in that life? Like he really did nothing. He had no one.
Yeah, he was alone, I think. Yeah. And he
And
wanted
his
to get out as
cave.
soon as possible. He didn't
It
really
wasn't interesting. He could probably back then the odor of his cave or wherever he was staying at probably didn't bother him. But remembering that odor in his present state, he said it was disgusting. You can imagine what things must have smelled like back then.
Oh,
But,
yeah. That's pretty horrible.
but people probably didn't react. You know, it was probably everybody was used to it, so nobody noticed it. You know, it was like there's
That's old school Matrix stank.
yeah, old school make. I just don't know. I mean, is everybody that's here? Have we all been here for millennia, or are we some people new? I've always tried to figure that out. Obviously some are, because there's more people on the planet today than there were before, so they keep having to recruit more people to come here, right?
It's really tough to say. It's tough to say. I mean, there's obviously got to be some noobs, but I don't know. I
Or
mean, tough to say.
and there's
What the?
also like a thought I had once, which is kind of even scarier, is that simultaneously we've incarnated into the same time over and over again to fill in slots,
Mm-hmm.
and we're actually here like multiple times. There are cases in Newton's book and other books where I've read where somebody remembers two reincarnations in the same time period.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, so that's now you get into like a science fiction quantum realm type stuff when you get to that, where you're in two places at the same time.
Well, or it's just a simulation running itself over again. You know, so even though, for instance, like he's saying, "Oh, I was in the caveman era." Well, you know, theoretically, if we didn't figure out the bullshit going on here, we can die and then end up, the Matrix could just spit us out into the caveman version of the Matrix, and who's to say it's even in this specific simulation? Maybe it's in an adjacent simulation that's linked to the Matrix, and these memories are all kind of hooked into one another, and it makes us seem even, I don't know. I mean, it's really, you really start stretching things, but because of the whole factor of time not existing, according to what we're told, then it makes almost anything possible.
Yeah, they throw a lot of stuff at you for people that claim to be a lot of scientists, they take this materialist position, but they at the same time they throw all this wild stuff. I mean, I don't know how I don't know what to think about like the multiverse theory, where there's like many versions of the same place.
Yeah, I don't know what to think. Yeah.
Are there many versions of you and me in different Earths or realms? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big question that I don't think we'll have the answer to until we get the hell out of here.
Yeah, we just have to go all the way out.
Yeah, that's right, all the way,
and then look at it from the outside. That's the thing. Also, I guess I have to go in a few minutes. Sure. I just wanted to ask you, so we could do a show sometime about suddenly I've seen, and you've noticed it too, a lot of reincarnation soul trap information coming up from all different sources.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big issue. Yeah.
And they all seem to I've sent you a message before. It's funny because they all seem to start popping up when we started pushing this idea of individuality is key. Maintaining your own personal authority is the key. And then suddenly a lot of this other, I've started seeing, none of them give that solution that I've seen so far. So it's quite interesting.
Same here. That's the biggest problem is, no solutions. And it's more the same dribble. It's really, there's nothing adding to the picture. There's certainly nothing about sovereignty, liberation, non-interference, doing your own thing, being left alone, and basically creating your own realm that's impenetrable and incapable of being messed with. None of that is being discussed. And it's clear that, the topic is being attacked. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I gotta go take care of my dog, and
right,
sorry to cut it short, Mark.
No, it's cool.
But I will tune in later to see the rest of this analysis because I think it will be fascinating. So
great. Okay, thanks for joining us tonight, Dan. I really appreciate it, and I hope the dog feels better soon.
Me too. It shouldn't be anything serious. She had something like this before and got better, so I'm hoping chicken and rice and vet appointment coming up will fix it.
Good. All right, brother. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Peace. All right, my friend. So we are going to continue on with the commentary of Robert Snow's past life regression. It's going to blow you away. So I hope you enjoyed Dan stopping by today, and thank you, Dan, again for joining us. It was nice to have you with us for a few minutes.
And I know she's going to ask me. So, hey, I see.
Okay, so just to recap, he's talking about the colleague who is a psychologist with the department who's kind of nagging him to take the past life regression, and it's based on a dare and all that stuff. So just to recap, because there are long gaps. So
her somewhere, and it's got, oh God, you see her there. Oh God, you're going to have to make some other excuse again. And it seemed like I couldn't avoid her. And just every day it seemed like I'd see her walk down the hall, and I know she's going to ask me. So finally, I just got I thought, this is stupid. So I went ahead and just made the appointment. I thought, well, I'll make it. But by this time I was kind of irritated. I thought, well, I'll make an appointment. I'll go there, and then I'm going to record it all, and I'm going to show this detective / psychologist how foolish the whole thing is. Because at the time, I didn't really think I could be hypnotized. I thought I was much too strong-willed. So anyway, I did go ahead and make the appointment and went and seen her friend again, she was a psychologist who did, besides regular therapy, also past life regression therapy.
Yeah. And obviously you were very skeptical during the session. I just have to say, Dr. Raymond Moody's been on the show.
Oh, right.
But obviously you went to the session very skeptical and thinking you couldn't be hypnotized. What happened?
Well, again, I decided that I was going to cooperate 100%. The lady I went to was Mary Ellen Griffith. Just nice lady, very nice lady. She's very gracious when I came in, and then, she didn't, ask me why. I just told her, she asked me if I had any problems. I said no. I just think that past life regression is interesting. I want to try it. And she didn't seem to have any problems with it and all that. And again, so we talked, sit and talk a bit. But she said, okay, so we're going to start. So anyway, we went through. Gosh, I don't know how long of she did a lot of imagery. She told me, okay, tell me about your college graduation, in imagery. Tell me all about it. Tell me about something happened in high school, then something happened in grade school. And I could see where she was going. Who was going down younger and younger. And I was being nice and I was cooperating, but I thought this is really silly because again, I still didn't believe I could be hypnotized. I didn't think that was possible. So anyway, so finally she said, okay, now imagine a balloon. Now I'm sitting on this couch in her office, and but my eyes closed. Now the window's to my right, and I could see a purple blob, but I knew it was just the sun coming through the windows on the right. And I said, yeah, I can see a purple balloon. And she said, okay. She said, now imagine you take the balloon up. I'm going along with everything because I want to cooperate so I can prove to the detective that this is all foolishness. Nothing, it didn't work. So I try to imagine myself getting the balloon going up. And anyway, so she said, see yourself travel. I said, look down, see what you see. Now, interesting enough, I looked down and I looked like I could see little spots of light below. But I thought, well, that's probably just, glare off the floor. It's not really anything, but it looked like little spots of light below. So anyway, I'm contending, I'm cooperating. I'm imagining what she says to imagine. And she says, oh, anyway, she says, okay. Now says, reach up above you and there's a release. I'll take the balloon down. We're going to land and we'll see what we see. So I tried to imagine it, but then nothing happened. And we went through this at least a dozen times to try and now pull the release. And I do it. Nothing. I wasn't going to make up anything. I mean, this was her daydream, not mine. So I was tremendously skeptical. But
so you hear the skepticism all the way with him, which like Dan said, it's great because that's a true investigator, and that's how you look at all this stuff to see the soul trap. Skepticism, and then you prove it to yourself, little by little.
I kept trying to imagine it, but nothing happened. We went through this for, at least 10 minutes or so, her trying to get me to bring this balloon down. That's what happened. And I thought, at that time, it was kind of confirmation of what I had thought, that this is all silly foolishness, that it's basically people making up things, think they're hypnotized just to please the therapist. So anyway, she did, but interesting enough, Dr. Griffith didn't seem to least bit perturbed about it. She said, okay, no problem. Okay. Finally, she said, okay, apparently you don't want to land in these places. She said, now see if you can imagine a mountain. Now, by this time, I've been sitting at least 20, 25 minutes on her couch, which was an incredibly hard couch. But I hadn't moved. And I was really stiff and starting to ache a little bit. And I thought, so all of a sudden I could see a mountain. And that wasn't a clear vivid, it's more like a daydream type thing. I could see a mountain. And I said, okay, I can see a mountain. She said, okay, I'll take the balloon over to the mountain. So I tried to imagine taking the balloon over to the mountain. She said, okay, now land. And I tried to imagine, and actually I did land this time. I thought, okay, I can do that. So anyway, she said, okay, what do you see? Now, interestingly, she said, there's a cabin here. Can you see it? And interesting enough, I could. It was a log cabin, but the logs are going vertical rather than horizontal. Mm-hmm. And a reader of mine later wrote me and told me that was a French method of building log cabins. I didn't know at the time. But anyway, she said, okay, go into the cabin, and what do you see? So I go in, I don't see anything. Again, I'm still thinking this is her daydream, not mine. I don't see anything. So she said, okay, try to imagine a large meal and and bright lights, and I'm doing all that. I'm trying to cooperate. So she finally said, okay, we're done here. We're going to walk down into this valley. Said there are 12 steps. Said we're going to walk down and we'll count the steps as you walk down. And so she starts off with 12, and she starts doing this thing. Each numbers get longer. 11, 10. I'm thinking, oh God, this is like a stage, a stage hypnotist. I'm thinking to myself how it's this is almost ridiculous. I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing here?
When's it going to finish?
So silly. What am I doing here?
Now, see, like what's amazing to me is that he was even able to be hypnotized in the first place with all this doubt. I still think no matter what, obviously, this was all meant to be. This is all part of his life script. I'm convinced of that. Okay, these big drawn out types of things don't happen unless there's something behind it. And I think no matter how much skepticism he's putting out there, which is great, at the same time, something inside of him is saying, hey, I got to do this. So, because most people, if you were to put your intention out there in front of a hypnotist saying, oh, this is all hogwash and bullshit and blah, blah, blah. Well, you're likely not going to connect and be hypnotized and be capable of tapping into the past life. Seriously, I just, that's really how it has to work. Like, you have to be susceptible to hypnotism and not necessarily be fighting it the entire time. So I think he's just putting on a skeptic hat and putting it all out there for us. But in the back of his either subconscious or something, he knows that, you know, hey, maybe there's something to it. Maybe it's the detective inside of him that's saying, keeping that open mind. Obviously, he's doing it. If he, you know, didn't do it, it'd be another story. Well, actually, we never hear the story.
So anyway, she counts down, and finally we get down to 3, 2, 1, and we hit 1. Something really bizarre happened. I was in a valley. I mean, I knew I was still sitting in the seat. I could still feel the couch under me. I could hear traffic outside the window right. But at the same time, I was in a valley, and it was as vivid as any true life. I looked around and I was walking along the valley, and I could see the trees. Funny enough, I could feel a wind blowing in my face. I figured at the time it was just air conditioning in her office. But I could look, and I stopped and looked at the leaves. I could see the veins in leaves. It was so vividly clear.
Right.
And Dr. Griffith said, "Okay, now look down. Well, look down at yourself. What do you see?" Now I looked down and I saw a pair of really dirty, gnarled feet and some really dirty, nasty fur. And in my left hand, I'm carrying looks like a big piece of a tree limb. Everybody knows what cavemen look like.
Okay.
Now I knew what it was. I mean, this is everybody's seen movies and TV programs. I knew what this was. I was obviously some kind of caveman. I didn't realize till later when I listened to her recording again that before this she had told me to go back to the very first life I had lived on Earth. Go back to my very first existence. I didn't remember the time, but apparently, according to when I listened to tape, I found that's what she had said. So anyway, I'm walking along this valley, and I'm describing it to Dr. Griffith. Then suddenly, I find myself, I'm saying things I don't know I'm going to say. It's like they just blurt out my mouth, and it's obviously the person whose bio I'm having speaking.
In English.
All of a sudden, I tell Dr. Griffith, "This is my home. I live here." And I thought to myself, "Why did I say that? I don't know where this place is at." And I pointed, and I said, "There's a cave up on the hill, up on the side of the hills where I live." And Dr. Griffith said, "Okay." He said, "Go to the cave." Now it's a funny thing, I didn't walk to the cave. I didn't, all of a sudden it'd be 2 or 3 seconds of kind of that gray fog. Next thing I knew, I was standing at the entrance to the cave. Mm-hmm. The funny thing is, I started walking the cave and I had this awful smell. I mean, whoever lived in this cave was not very hygienic. Now I couldn't imagine where that would come from. It was really a disgusting smell walking into this cave. So I described the cave to Dr. Griffith. And again, it's a funny thing. I wasn't scared or, anything like this or what was going on. I knew. Now, this time I was smart to realize that I had been hypnotized. I ain't that big a dummy. I knew that I had been hypnotized. And this was hypnosis work on my mind. But again, I didn't think it was anything supernatural. I thought this is simply my mind under the control of hypnosis. And I'm just basically seeing things that I've seen somewhere else before. This is out of a movie or out of a book or some kind of experience. I'm just repeating it for Dr. Griffith. So anyway, she finally said, "Okay, I want you to go to your death. Go to your death and tell me what you see." So again, there's just a couple minutes of kind of gray fog. And next thing I know, I'm not in the body anymore. I'm floating above in the cave. I'm floating. I see a little scrawny man laying on the floor of the cave, and he's wrapped in furs. And he's really coughing really hard, really hard. I knew he was dying. So I described everything to Dr. Griffith. She said, "Okay, now go out the cave and look up in the light. Do you see anything?" Look up in the sky, I'm sorry. "Do you see anything?" I said, "Yeah, there's a real bright light in the sky." She said, "Okay, go to that." Before I went to that, again, I just blurted out that this life was a bad life because I didn't have anybody, that I was alone this whole life, that I didn't have anyone. So Dr. Griffith said, "Okay, I tell you what, go to a life where you did have someone. Go to a life where you had somebody important." So I fly up into the light, and there's maybe 4 or 5 seconds of gray fog. And the next thing I see, it's funny. It's kind of like a movie that's out of focus. You can't really see a whole lot of what's going on. Then suddenly it's snapped into focus. I see I'm walking along a street. It's in a big city, but it's not the present time because there's gas lights and there's horse-drawn carriages going by, but a lot of tall buildings. But interesting enough, was a summer day, and I could feel the sun beating down on me. I could feel the heat of the sun. And I'm in a little closed, dark office. Again, I know what this is. This is hypnosis. And truthfully, I was really enjoying it this time because it was kind of like one of the greatest rides you ever went to an amusement park. You can go to an amusement park and they have virtual reality rides and they look real. They really do look real, but they're not. And that's why I thought, this is fun. And she said, okay, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to meet a woman. She said, okay, now you've met up her. Who is it? And I described the woman to her and everything. And I said, we're going to a cafe. So we walked to a outdoor cafe and I sat down and she said, what do you order? I said, I order wine and she orders kind of special water. So I just talked about this while. She said, okay. She says, go forward 5 years in your life. So I go forward 5 years and I'm in a hallway of an apartment. I'm arguing with a woman who I felt at the time, I told her it's my wife. I'm arguing with her. And we're having some kind of, I don't know what we're arguing about, some kind of argument. I just stormed away and walked down the hall. And I walked to the room and it's an artist studio. There's a hole on the right, the whole wall on the right, there's all solid windows and there's a skylight above me. And the place is just filled with dozens of portraits and paintings. The walls are just covered with. So obviously I wasn't a terribly successful painter because I had a lot of unsold paintings there. So I described my studio to Dr. Griffith and everything and what I saw and everything. Dr. said, okay. So now go 5 years in the future. So I go another 5 years. And I'm at some kind of party. I don't know what the party's for, but everybody's come up and congratulate me. Everybody's come up, to tell me, congratulate me, everything. I have no idea, but I could feel the person's body as inhabited, the artist's body. He was really happy. That this is one of the happiest moments of his life, and you could feel that. And I couldn't, I had no idea what he was happy about, but I could feel the happiness. So anyway, I described this to Dr. Griffith, and she's fine. Says, go ahead, 5 years, and I didn't do it. You think about your life, how many times do you ever experience total happiness, total joy and happiness? I want to stay a little longer. That's the interesting part about hypnosis. Stage magicians would think you're completely under control. The hypnotist, that you'll dance around and cluck like a chicken. That's not really true. I mean, you still have control. In this case, I stayed for a few minutes at the party. Even Dr. Griffith kept telling me, go 5 years, go 5 years. And I didn't. But finally, I finally went ahead 5 years, and I'm at an apartment. I say, she said, I want you to go. She said, I want you to go. No, I'm sorry. I went to some gardens first. But then later on, she said, I want you to go to your death. She says, go to your death and tell me what happens. So I see myself in an apartment and I've died. And she said, okay, now what? And I see myself rising up out of the body and going through the city. Now, everybody's seen movies where people die, the ghost comes out of your body. I'm thinking, that's all this is. I've seen this in movies 100 times. So I die, and I come up out of the body. And Dr. Griffith says, what was your greatest regret about this life? I said, I regret that your wife and I didn't have children, but my wife couldn't have children. She said, okay. She said, now, go into the light. And I look around, and I'm over a huge city. I mean, this is a huge, huge city with just, the mile. You see lights for miles in every direction. And she said, oh, good light. But I didn't. Again, I didn't. I did what I wanted to do. I saw myself flying through some woods. I could tell that it was looked like a cold fall night because the trees still had their leaves, but it looked really cold and brisk night. And a few moments later, I'm at a big mansion, and I'm floating, and I'm looking through the window on the second or third floor, and there above the fireplace is a painting. And I told her I wanted to look at one of my paintings one more time before I went. And it's a still life painting. And I described the painting to Dr. Griffith. It was a still life with a big sun in the background. So finally after that, I did go into the light. She said, okay, now I want you to go to a life that you experienced as a woman. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, that's going to happen. Yeah.
So here he goes into the next one.
Said, I want you to go back to when you're a woman. So next thing, there's about 4 or 5 seconds of gray fog, and sure enough,
Now, see, what's interesting is he talks about the 4 or 5 seconds of gray fog. Now, he brings this up a couple times. Actually, I think every time. And that's a key thing to take away. Like, if you've had a past life regression, either with a hypnotherapist or through audio tracks and have been successful, like you likely would have experienced something like this gray fog. And then everything, boom, just becomes clear to you. And then it's like you're reliving that experience. It's incredible. And so this to me gives some credence. Now, can you say, oh yeah, the guy can just, read up on some books and just make these claims? Sure. But I think it gives some legitimacy to it, because at least I can say that it's something that does happen, because I've experienced it, and maybe some of you have too.
Finally, after that, I did go into light. She said, okay, now I want you to go to a life that you experienced as a woman. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, that's going to happen. Yeah. Said, I want you to go back to when you're a woman. So next thing, there's about 4 or 5 seconds of gray fog. And sure enough, I'm in another body. But I looked down, and this is a woman's body. And I thought, oh, hell. Because I really thought, no, this is not, how can you imagine that? Now, I mean, it's one thing about, just imagine being a ghost or a caveman. Everybody knows that. But how did I imagine I'll be a woman? But I looked down, I could see my body was at a woman's. And I'm standing in front of a monument, some kind of monument. It's a pretty good sized building, or circular, with pillars. And all of a sudden, again, like in the previous lives, I started saying things, the things I didn't know I was going to say.
Okay, let me just rewind this part.
Now, how can you imagine that? Now, I mean, it's one thing about, just imagine being a ghost or a caveman. Everybody knows that. But how did I imagine I'll be a woman? But I looked down, I could see my body was at a woman's. And I'm standing in front of a monument, some kind of monument. It's a pretty good sized building, or circular, with pillars.
Okay. I'm standing in front of a monument, big size, with pillars. Now, this is just, I'm throwing it out there. I'm not saying this is a definitive connection at all. I'm just saying it's something to think about, because we've seen with past life regressions and pre-birth memories how there are these pillars sometime that are present. So it's a possible data point connection. The problem is we don't get too much detail about much of it. So make of it what you will. Just something to consider.
And all of a sudden, again, like in the previous lives, I started saying things, the things I didn't know I was going to say. And I talk about how this is my job. I work here. I bring things down to the altar. So anyway, we go through a long discussion with Dr. Griffiths today, and we go through move forward. And finally, I see myself after the job at the altar. I'm in a wagon, with an ox-driven wagon with an old man. And I look to my right, and there's a little girl, about a 4 or 5 year old girl, sitting there. And again, I didn't know who it was, but in my life, then the body was occupied, I knew it was my daughter. But interesting enough, it was someone I recognized from this life. It was my stepdaughter from this life. But she wasn't age. At that point, I had the regression. She was a teenager. But when I looked down at her, she was the same age she was when her mother and I got married, just a little girl. So anyway, I went to this farm with this old man, and he died pretty quickly. And so I was kind of, and in those days, I don't think women had much rights to any kind of property and what have you. Now, next thing I do, I'm taking my daughter back to the altar, and I'm giving her to the altar. Now, I'm trying to justify to Dr. Griffith why I'm doing this, how her life would be so much better there. They take care of her. But I knew in my heart, at least the person bodies I'd have, that I was abandoning her, because life would be a lot easier for me without a little kid tagging along. How much easier it'd be just, without a little kid to worry about. But all the time I'm trying to justify Dr. Griffith how this is so much better for her. They'll take care of her, she'll have a home and all this kind of thing. And I basically abandoned her there. And so I see myself, and when she said go 20 years in the future, I see myself in a village next to a large body of water, and I work with fish. Somehow I work with fish. So anyway, Dr. Griffith told me, he says, okay, go to your death. And so I found myself drowning. It was that was kind of a scary feature, because I could feel myself. I was caught in some nets, and I could taste salt water. And right at that moment, I could taste salt water. I thought, that is really bizarre. And anyway, I ended up drowning. But at that time, I was kind of glad that I lived life, because I felt this tremendous guilt, this awful guilt on me about abandoning my daughter. And I'm thinking to myself at the time, how silly this is. This is all make-believe and all that. But I still felt a tremendous guilt about abandoning my daughter at the altar. So anyway, Dr. Griffith said, okay.
Okay, so he feels the tremendous guilt. I mean, look, that makes sense, but at the same time, the guy freaking drowns. I mean, imagine drowning on your way out. That has got to be the worst. And who knows, maybe many, if not all of us who have been here a number of times have experienced just that. A show I have to recommend, and I am going to do a full commentary on the entire show. I believe it's from BBC. It's titled Life After Life. You guys have got to see that show. It's, I think, 4 episodes or 6 episodes. I don't remember. It's not very long. But let me just say, like, all the things I talk about on this channel and how it relates to the trap are in that show. Almost all of it. It's crazy. You guys got to see it. So check out Life After Life. And once the website opens, when I can actually start to cover things like movies and TV and music, that will be up there. That's something I'm going to go over. So, but in the meantime, highly recommend checking out that show. Do not miss out on it. You won't regret it. It shows the mechanics of and the deception of the soul trap every single minute. It's crazy.
But I still felt a tremendous guilt about abandoning my daughter at the altar. So anyway, Dr. Griff said, okay, now I want you to go back to the most previous life before you were a Bob Snow. Go back to life you were before you were present one. So again, there's 3 or 4 seconds of gray fog. And all of a sudden I'm in the same artist studio. And I realize I'm the artist again. And I'm painting a portrait. I'm in the same studio painting a portrait. But interesting enough, it was a portrait of a hunchback woman. Interesting. I thought, well, how many paintings of hunchback women have you ever seen?
Yes.
Yeah. So the thing is, the other thing about the regression though, it was so clear. I could see every brush stroke of the painting, and I could see I was just about done. I could see every single brush stroke about it. And I remember telling Dr. Griffith, I'm doing a portrait. I hate doing portraits. I hate them, but I need the money. I really hate doing portraits, but I need the money. So anyway, so we talked about this, and I described it. And so we went on to the next. She said, "Go, Jerry, go 5 years forward," and so on. And I go and I see myself in this really heated conversation with someone about poor lighting for my painting. About I'm having some kind of exhibition. I'm arguing with somebody who's in charge about how bad the lighting is for my painting. So I talked about this for a while, and then she said, "Okay." She said, "Now go to the so forth. So another 5 years." So another 5 years, I'm in a garden, and I can hear piano music coming from my house outside the garden, just outside the garden. And I described Dr. Griffith. She said, "Where are you at?" And again, I didn't know where I was at, but I just immediately said, "I'm in France." Whoever the artist ever knew where he's going. So I walked into the house. There's my wife playing on the piano with a bunch of friends standing. She's playing the piano, but her friends are standing around. So anyway, I talked about this. Dr. Griffith finally said, "Okay, now go 5 years in the future to what you see." So anyway, between I'm in the gray fog again, waiting between. And all of a sudden, I feel overwhelmed. I mean, it's like a ton of bricks on my chest. And I just blurred out. I blurred out, "She died of a blood clot. The doctor said she died of a blood clot." Now, I have no idea who I'm talking about, but I knew it was a person extremely important to the artist because I felt this intense grief, this awful grief that this person was so important that died.
So I think what's really important to put out there is that with these past life regressions, if you experience one, you will have all the feelings, emotions, sensations that come along with the experience that you're going through. It's literally as if you are living it right through there. And someone brought up a great question that I just want to address really quick. I'm sorry, I'm probably going to butcher your name, but it's Talila Aksu Mentat says, "Is the doctor's methods the same as Dolores Cannon's QHHT method of regression?" Sorry, I wasn't able to catch the start of the live video. That was not mentioned exactly how it was done, but from what we know, basically Robert was in the police department, and there was a colleague who was a psychologist for the police department who did hypnosis, but on the side for fun did past life regressions. Now, where they learned that from, I don't know specifically, perhaps the information's out there, but it's a good question. I don't think we have the answer. At least I don't have the answer right now. If any of you happen to find it, feel free to drop it in the chat.
I have no idea who I'm talking about, but I knew it was a person extremely important to the artist because I felt this intense grief, just an awful grief that this person was so important that died. So anyway, well, after I said this, all of a sudden the recorder we're all clicked off with a raw click, and opened my eyes, and that was it. It was over. Now I'm kind of embarrassed in a way because I went there feeling so certain that I couldn't be hypnotized, and not only had I been, I'd be sitting there babbling for at least a half hour, about stuff that was foolish. I thought at the time, still thought at the time, it's foolishness,
Just your imagination.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought, no, when you're hypnotized, you access your subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought these are old memories from this life that have been reordered into a story and brought up so that I could make a story for whatever Dr. Griffith's talking about. I didn't believe any of this is real. Certainly not. Of course it couldn't be real. But at the same time, I was so flustered, mainly because the regression was so vivid. I didn't realize that I had a full sensory, what they call a full sensory regression, which apparently is pretty rare, where you not only see and hear, but you can taste, feel, touch, smell. But anyway, the problem with it is everything was so vivid. I mean, it was as vivid as real life. I mean,
they often say that about past life memories.
It was extraordinary.
Not only that, but you can relive them. They're always there in your memory. You can relive them vividly over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of NDEers will say. And as they move along, say, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years down the road after they've had their NDE, most people will say that they develop further clarity as time goes by. Now, some people who experience the negative ones, they're, traumatized by them to much extent. And then some just kind of forget about them as best they can and don't necessarily gain further clarity. Now, it really varies depending on the person. Now, with the regression, the same thing can kind of happen. And I think that's something embedded within us that it's just like, okay, we live through that experience and we connect with it on such a deep level. And the Matrix cannot cover it up completely. You got to remember the free will and our essence within us is not something that can ever be fully contained. They do a hell of a damn good job in doing so with these meat suits that we're all in. But overall, if the drive is there, you can start to pick up on things and build on them. And only you as an individual will know what is true and what is not. And, you can say everything till the cows come home. And either people are going to believe you or they're not. But the person that really knows is you, the individual. And that's what matters most. But what matters even more is that you reclaim your essence through sovereignty, liberation, non-interference, and leaving this entire matrix system and never looking back, never having regrets, and going to your own realm that you created that is incapable of being interfered with. It's impenetrable. And then pick up things from there. Give yourself some time, even though time doesn't exist, supposedly. At least that's what makes sense, but who knows? Just do your thing. Walk the path as an individual. Avoid the groupthink. Avoid the pressures that come along with the society that expect you to do certain things. Or, do not allow this matrix to get its distractions and hooks in you through this sensory experience, because that's what it wants. It wants us to cling to this experience so that we don't leave. The answer is by being an individual and not interacting with any of this mess once you're on your way out.
Yeah, the point was it's no longer my subconscious. It's now in my regular memory, And so you're right. And actually for, oh gosh, maybe 4 or 5 years or so after, I could close my eyes and still see the painting, like the painting Hunchback Woman. After I could still see every brushstroke. For several years afterward, I could close my eyes and still see every single brushstroke. So again, I didn't know. I wasn't sure what to do. I really wasn't. So I basically just got, because Dr. Griffin wanted to talk about how you recognize how this affects your present life. And I really did in the moment. I just muttered something, to her, and I had to I just want to get out of there. I need to think that. I need to think this over. So I basically just muttered stuff and got out of there. And so I went out and sat in my car for a while, and I'm trying to think, it wouldn't have bothered me if it had been all blurry and fuzzy, and everything wouldn't bother you at all, because you think this is just stupid memories. But the point was, everything was just so vivid, so clear.
Yeah, it's like a photo you can keep bringing up.
And I didn't know what to make.
I just want to ask you, when you're imagining yourself, or probably not when you're remembering yourself as these lives, did you see yourself from above, or were you actually integrated in that person?
It depends. It depends. Like I said, when I'd go to my death in the caveman, I was from above. Mm-hmm. But now, other than that, I was in the body of most everybody else. The only one I really did an out of body thing on was the caveman. The rest of them is pretty much in the body. And
during the point of your death, what feelings or emotions were you experiencing? Going to the light.
I didn't really feel anything. A lot of, like I said, the caveman, I wanted to get out. That was a bad life, so I was happy to leave it. The altar girl, I was particularly glad to leave that one, because I felt this awful guilt. Once you went to light, of course, the guilt and everything is gone. I didn't feel any particular emotions. Didn't feel, sad or, anything like that. Basically, I just went into it and started with the next one.
And then going towards the light, do you have any memories after that?
No.
Here comes the moment. Here, just listen to the question.
Of course, the guilt and everything is
One more
gone.
time.
I didn't feel any particular emotions. Didn't feel, sad or, anything or anything like that. Basically, I just went into it and started with the next one.
And then going towards the light, do you have any memories after that?
No, again, you have just 4 or 5. What I have is 4 or 5 seconds. It's like gray fog. You really couldn't see much of anything. You're in a real dense fog. You don't really see anything. Then the next scene starts coming. But again, it never came in immediately sharp. The next scene after you come out of the fog would always be kind of blurry. After maybe 3 or 4 seconds, all of a sudden just snap into clarity.
And
I think that's so well said, because that's true. If you experience a regression, that's exactly what you'll go through. I mean, at least that's what I experienced. So maybe it's different for some people, but it does seem fairly common. So I love hearing his description like that.
Blurry. After maybe 3 or 4 seconds, all of a sudden just snap into clarity.
There's some more coming.
And then you're sitting in, I know what happens, but afterwards, is the word a little bit obsessed to find the artist?
Well, I don't. What I told myself after it was done is that this is just subconscious memories of things you've seen in this life and done. You just need to forget about it, Bob. It was just an interesting experience, certainly, but you need to forget about it. It doesn't really mean anything. But the problem was, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I mean, it was the problem again being that I could taste the salt water, I could feel the sun, I could smell the cave. That's not an ordinary memory. It's and everything again. If I close my eyes, I can still see the scenes completely, all the scenes completely.
And that's what Andy Ears will say.
And it started to bug me because I couldn't stop thinking about it. I would think about it all day long for at least a month or so afterward. I could not. Every minute, every day, it's like I was thinking about it. I couldn't shut my mind. And it started to worry me because as a police officer, I've seen people with obsessions, serious obsessions, and believe me, it seldom turns out good. And I thought, well, Bob, what you need to do to get rid of this obsession, to find one of those 2 paintings. If you find the still life or the Hunchback Woman painting, you will remember where you saw them at. Because you saw them in this life somewhere. You just don't remember it because it's probably just you're passing somewhere and glance at them and go on. Or maybe there's a little blurb of the artist down below and you read about this artist. That's how you knew other things about him. And so I thought, well, Bob, if you could find one of these 2 paintings, that would explain everything. And then you'll realize this is nothing supernatural. This is nothing spiritual. This is simply your old memories coming back to you. And so what I decided to do is I was going to go to and unfortunately now this, excuse me, this was pre-internet days. And so in pre-internet days, you just didn't put
Google.
Yeah, Google something. You didn't simply look at the Hunchback Woman and put it in the search engine. You had to go to the library and take books off the shelf and study them. So what I did, I went to the public library, went to their art section. They had I didn't realize at the time how many books they had. A lot of art books. And I started going my lunch hour every day and going through all their art books. And I was sure I would find one of these two portraits. With two paintings, because I'm not much of an art aficionado. Excuse me. But I figured they had to be halfway famous, or I wouldn't know about them. And so I basically went there and I started looking through art books. I started thumbing through them until I could find. I thought I'll find them sooner or later. The still life or the Hunchback Woman painting will show up. I'll say, oh, okay, I saw that. This small art showing 2 years, 10 years ago, what have you. Then everything falls into place. Well, if it took me better than a month, and I went through every single art book, and I didn't find either one. Now that really started to bug me. I thought, well, maybe the art, they don't have a big enough collection here. So I started visiting bookstores around Indianapolis, and I started going to the bookstores and looking at their art books. And I did that probably number, still didn't find it. Then I finally started calling some galleries and talking and described the paintings to them. And I found an interesting thing. In the pre-internet days, there was no listing of paintings. You had to basically know where a painting was. Or there'd be, unless if it was yours, a Renoir or a Van Gogh or something, they would know where it's at. But a lesser painting, there was no central listing of them. So I wasn't sure. I went through everything trying to find these things. It was a 3 or 4 month investigation trying to find them.
And this is what you specialized in anyway as a detective.
That's what really bugged me, because I thought this would be an easy case. This wouldn't be that hard a case. And I've been working investigations for a while, and so I thought this should be easy to solve.
Okay, my friends, I'm going to hold it off there for a minute. We've already gone an hour and 15 minutes, so I got to take a quick 5-minute break, but I promise we'll be right back. There's much more to come. Hang in there with me, and look forward to seeing you shortly. Thanks for tuning in tonight, and I want to welcome anyone who just got here from Howdy's video. Thank you. to get back into Robert Snow's past life realization via regression.
This is what you specialized in anyway
Yeah,
as a detective.
that's what really bugged me, because I thought this would be an easy case. This wouldn't be that hard a case. And I've been working investigations for a while, and so I thought this should be easy to solve, but it wasn't. Because I tried it. I even went to a New Age bookstore in Indianapolis, and to find some books.
That was adventurous.
Yeah, I went in disguise, needless to say, but I didn't tell them it was. But I went there and I got some books on past life regression to see if maybe there's something to explain what I saw and how it came to do. And I found that a lot of people had very similar experiences to mine. But more than that, at the back of those books, they had a script for a self hypnosis that you could do it yourself. And that sounds good, but believe me, that's a lot harder to do than you think. So I tried it, maybe half a dozen times. And twice while I was doing it, I could feel myself going into the same state I was in Dr. Griffith's office. But it only lasted for maybe 3 or 4 seconds. I would see the number 1917. Then it just clicked off. It just blop, you'd be out of it again. Twice I saw the number 1917. That's all I saw. But finally, to tell you the truth, I told you I was in charge of homicide for a number of years in Indianapolis, and we had a really good clearance rate here, but that still doesn't mean we solved every case. There are some cases we simply did not solve because they could not be solved. We just didn't have the evidence to solve them. And so I figured what you do with these cases, you simply deactivate them, which doesn't mean they're going to be forgotten about. That means they go into the shelf until new evidence comes in. And when new evidence comes in, then you reopen the case. So I thought this was going to happen in this case. There's just no evidence. There's not enough evidence. I can't solve it. So I was going to put it on the shelf and just forget. I said, Bob, there's nothing more you can do. Put it on the shelf. Forget about it.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds good. It didn't work. I still thought about it all the time. But anyway,
and you didn't have anyone to talk to about this?
No, I didn't have any. I mean, who you talk to about this? Come on. I mean, who do you really talk to?
Well, I guess you don't talk to your detective colleagues.
No,
about
you don't
this.
talk to the detective because this is silly, because they look at you like, okay.
They think you're going crazy.
Yeah, they think, you've been drinking or you've been crazy when I didn't even talk to my wife. I didn't even talk to my wife about it. She was probably one of the best detectives I've ever met. She's an excellent detective. But I didn't even talk to her about it because I thought she'd feel the same way. So anyway, about a month after this, my wife, it was coming up to our anniversary, which in April, and we decided that year to go somewhere that neither of us had been before. So she called me one day at work and says, what do you think about going to New Orleans? I thought, well, that's not a good idea. I'd never been to New Orleans. She hadn't. I had a friend who I'd met at a writers conference who lived in New Orleans. I thought, well, we can go down there and, look around, have a good time. So we booked a trip for New Orleans for our anniversary. So we flew down there, and it was, it was in April, so the weather wasn't, really terribly muglish or anything. If you go there another time of year, it's really hot. But anyway, we had a good time. My wife is a real history buff, and if you go, you can't throw a rock in New Orleans on hitting something historical. And so we went to a lot of plantations and a lot of, war, the War of 1812 battle site, things like that. So anyway, the last day of our vacation, we had our plane didn't leave till the evening, so we had all day. And I had noticed when at nighttime we used to go down to the French Quarter and go visit, hear all the bands and visit some of the bars and what have you. And I noticed on our way every night to French Quarter are all kind of little neat shops at the French Quarter, memorabilia shops, art galleries, antique shops. So I told her, well, when we spend the afternoon for our plane leaves, it's just going to visit these shops in the French Quarter. And she thought it was good, so like a good idea. And so we did. We spent the afternoon. We visited these historic memorabilia shops, antique stores. We finally got to Royal Street. And
this is where it gets good, guys.
Days in Royal Street in New Orleans was art galleries.
Right.
And so we started walking in, and it's funny. They had some beautiful, beautiful paintings of these things. Of course, much more than I could afford, certainly. But anyway, we started walking down, and I noticed as we walked down Royal Street, the galleries kept getting smaller and the paintings more obscure. Anyway, we finally get to the shop at the very end of the street, and we walk in, and it's a two-story. And it had a sign that said "Modern Art" upstairs. My wife, I never have been a fan of modern art, but she is. She went upstairs, so I'm walking along the first floor. I'm looking at paintings. I don't recognize any of the paintings, and I certainly don't recognize any of the artists. And I'm walking along, and I'm just looking and looking. And I get to the corner, and there's a portrait sitting on a easel in the corner. And I glance at it, and all of a sudden, now this was probably the most frightening moment. I was police officer for 38 years, and I was in a lot of situations that were really scary. really scary. But I have never been this scared.
Oh,
I
Bob.
looked at it. Yeah, I looked at it. It was the portrait of the hunchback woman.
Gosh.
Now, come on. You got to think, come on. What's the odds of seeing this a regression, searching for months, and to just stumble on it by accident?
Well, nothing happens by accident.
Yeah, well, I know, but at the moment,
it says a lot being
I'm trying to explain this to myself.
the head of homicide detective, and then you were shocked by
it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, listen. I was not really going to mention this, but I feel I have to, and I wish I could give the identity of the person, but I can't, because it just, she wouldn't be okay with it. But I'm going to show you the picture that he's referring to. Okay. Hopefully, if it pops up. Oh, come on. Okay. Of course, it's not working. Hold on. 1 minute, guys. Okay. Hold on. Okay. All right. Here we go. Just expand it. I apologize for the shoddy work here. All right. So see this woman. So this is, from my understanding, this is who he ran across. Okay, now I kid you not. I kid you not. I mean, this is freaky looking, right, guys? But I know someone who looks so close to this, it's not even funny. She even has the hair. I mean, it is crazy. So I'm just throwing that out there. It makes you wonder, like, why I ran across this case specifically, but it blows my mind. I mean, I wish I could show you a picture of her. I've reached out and asked for permission, but I haven't heard back from her. We're not really close anymore, and she's not the type of person who would be okay with that. But I mean, it is just crazy to me. I'm telling you, almost exactly. She even wears the kind of, I mean, this is a little too raggedy type of clothes, but it's almost identical. It's crazy to see. Okay, so that's it. I just thought I'd share that. I was gonna hold it back, but it's just wow.
Believe me, police officers don't believe in coincidences. Whenever you have an investigation where there's a startling coincidence, it's almost always something made to look that way by somebody. It's actually something they have done. But you're thinking, okay, who could have done this? You know, if it's not a coincidence. And I'm just staring at this painting, and I just can't believe it. I mean, I've never been that frightened, because in police work, I mean, yeah, you go to a lot of frightened situations, but you basically who have training and experience to know what to do.
You're prepared almost.
You're prepared, and you know what their response is like to be, what your response should be. I had no. I mean, how do you deal with this? I mean, I had no experience, no training. I'm sitting there just flabbergasted. I'm thinking to myself, maybe you're not here, Bob. Maybe you're in a nursing home somewhere with wires and tubes and everything, and you're just daydreaming this. I mean, what? Come on, what's the odds that this could happen? I just kept staring at it. The thing was, then I told myself, well, no, Bob, this looks like the painting. It looks pretty good, but it's not the same painting. But as I said, in those days, I could close my eyes, and I did. And I could see every brushstroke. When I closed my eyes, opened up, and it was the painting. And I'm just stumbling. I'm just grasping for some explanation for this. There's got to be some rational explanation to this, but I could not come up with it. Fortunately, after I was looking at it there for a whole 3 or 4 minutes at the painting, the salesman sees me and comes up and says, I bet you're thinking how nice to look over your fireplace. I think, yeah, that's all I want. Picture of a hunchback woman I don't know over my fireplace, but I didn't say it. I said, I don't recognize the artist. Who's the artist on this? And he told me, he said, well, come over. I got a little bio on him.
So you're acting really cool and calm at this point.
Yeah, I wasn't cool, Tom. I was sweating. I was sweating rivers, and I shaking.
So just imagine you're just going through New Orleans. You know, it's like a vacation. I think the wife planned. You're going through these art galleries, and then you walk in, and boom, there it is. This is the image that he recalls back in his past life regression. Yeah, that's freaky as hell. And like he said, it's the scariest moment of his life. But the only reason it's scary is because these things are so foreign to us, because we are deprived of this information that we have in fact been here before, or at least I think many, if not all of us have been. And, you know, if you cut off the spiritual component, you cut off the seeker component, the truth component, well, what are you going to have? You're going to have someone that is, you know, indoctrinated by a set of system rules and thought processes that don't necessarily think outside the box, and only the strongest who desire answers can break free. That's the sad truth. And then even if you reach that point, you've got all these hurdles to go over. Hurdle after hurdle after hurdle of disinfo and all sorts of craziness that is designed to take you away from finding yourself, to take you away from liberating yourself and getting out of this whole damn thing once and for all. There's a reason why all this is compartmentalized and sectioned off, and there's a reason why religions exist, so it gets people trapped into something. Sports, certain types of jobs, materialistic thinking, all these different types of setup jobs are ready and waiting for us to fall into. Doesn't matter what it is. As long as you fall into the matrix construct, that's all it cares about. Doesn't matter which one you jump into, as long as you land safely in one of their predestined boxes ready and waiting. And the whole point is to transcend all those boxes and do what you need to do for yourself on an individual level that is based in sovereignty, liberation, and non-interference.
I said, I don't recognize the artist. Who's the artist on this? And he told me, he said, well, come over. I got a little bio on him.
So you're acting really cool and calm at this point.
Yeah, I wasn't cool, Tom. I was sweating. I was sweating rivers, and I was shaking. I mean, he must have thought I was really excited. I really loved this painting, and I was a nervous wreck. So anyway, he took me over, and he searched his desk, and he finally found it. And it was maybe a quarter type page. It said the man's name was J. Carroll Beckwith. And of course, I'd never heard that. I'd never heard of J. Carroll Beckwith. No, he was no. But anyway, then he said, and I looked at it and I could see some things and I recognized that number one, he died in 1917. And I remember seeing the number 1917. I think, no.
And you remember how he brought that up earlier in the regression, or at least describing the regression, how those numbers stood out. Well, there you go. It pops up again in his trip to New Orleans.
And I recognized that number one, he died in 1917. And I remember seeing the number 1917. I think, no, Bob. It's just, I'm telling myself it's a coincidence. It's a coincidence. That means nothing. Then that's also that he'd been to France, which I remember telling Dr. Griffith that it was France. Mm-hmm. He's won some awards for his painting, and I remember being at a party for getting some kind of award. And even there were 5 different confirmations of what I'd seen. And I'm still telling myself, Bob, no, there's some logical explanation for this. But the nice thing was I realized now I had information. I knew who this person was and when he was born, when he died. And I could go back to Indianapolis, look him up, and then I'll remember where I saw the information from.
So you didn't buy the painting?
Oh no, I think it was like $5,000. I'm sure that's what I do. I'd spend $5,000 for painting, get it home, Then find out, oh yeah, I saw this 4 years ago, at some art place.
Mhm.
Now I'm stuck with a $5,000 painting of a hunchback woman I don't know. Now,
I like his response there. I would be the person that would buy the damn painting. drain part of your life savings to get the damn painting in hopes that it would provide more answers. But then, like, I like his thought process too. Like, what if you buy the damn thing and it's like, oh, it's nestled away in his subconscious somewhere? Like, oh, I saw it at some art show when I was a kid, or I saw it in a magazine or a brochure or something, and then you end up with this $5,000 painting of some hunchback woman. I mean, yeah, I get where he's coming from here.
wife would have killed me. She would have killed me, and I wouldn't blame her. No, I didn't. I didn't buy it because again, at the time, I've had a number of my readers write me, say, "Why did you buy the painting?" Well, I mean, the point was, at the moment, I still believe there had to be some explanation.
Yes.
That this was not past life thing. This was just some kind of. There had to be some explanation for this. I had seen this painting. Now, me running into it in New Orleans, yes, it was certainly wild. That was wildly coincidental. But I still believed I had seen it somewhere in this life, and I have just remembered it. So I thought, well, now I got the information on back. I'll have to go back to Indianapolis. I'll go to the public library, and then I'll find out, all about it, and I'll remember where I saw that. So we left, and I went back, and of course I went back, went to the library immediately after we got back to Indianapolis. Interesting enough, the librarian helped me because those days again there was no internet. You had to find stuff, and she found some stuff, but got all together wouldn't have been a half a type page. And she basically said, look, Beckwith was just not a very famous painter. He wasn't that good. And he wasn't that famous. He has no landmark paintings everyone's seen. He was basically a portrait painter who made his way in life by painting portraits of rich people.
And what was his nationality?
Yeah, and that was it.
He was American.
Yeah, he was American who lived mostly in New York City. He was actually born in Missouri, in Hannibal, Missouri, the birthplace of Mark Twain. But he lived for his childhood in Chicago, but then his all adulthood was in New York City because it turned out when I started looking up his history that his family, of course, his dad was fairly well off. They were pretty. His dad was a wholesale food wholesaler in Chicago. And they lived in a nice house and everything. But actually, there's enough. The 1871 fire in Chicago, the one about old Larry's cow knocking over the lantern and burning the Chicago down. Of course, that's his fable. But actually, there was a terrible fire, and it burned his house and his dad's business down. And so his dad arranged for him to go live with an uncle in New York, and that's how he's got to like New York. So anyway, if the librarian in Indianapolis said, "Look, we don't have much here," but said you need to go up to the art museum. They have a library there, a much more extensive library. You'll probably find more information about him up there. I thought that sounds like a good idea. And so I drove up there and went to their library. And they did have a little more information, not a whole lot, but they had a little more information. And what happened is all the information they have, I'd find one more fact that was true. Now I kept, this time I'm really disoriented and confused because these things, all these things I saw are true, but I'm still telling myself they're true because somewhere you saw this painting, you saw a little bio of the artist, and that's why they're true. Because like I went to the library, they found out that he died. I told you I thought he died in the fall. We died October 24th. I said I thought he died in a large city. We died in New York City. And it's these kind of things. There's one little affirmation after another, but it's again. I'm telling myself, no, Bob, no.
I've seen this somewhere. It's not.
I've seen this somewhere. But anyway, because when I'm at the Art Museum Library, she said, by the way, I have a booklet from an art exhibition that was his right here in Indianapolis. And I thought, hot dog. That's it. I found it. There was an exhibition of Beckwith's work here in Indianapolis. That's where I saw that. Unfortunately, it turned out the exhibition was in 1911. So it didn't, it wasn't much value. So anyway, she said, look, he just simply wasn't that famous. So anyway, I noticed though, in one of these little blurbs of information about him, it came from a book on John Singer Sargent, a very famous American painter. Turns out he and Beckwith were roommates in Paris for 5 years. They both went to art school in Paris, and they were roommates together. They knew each other. They were good friends their whole life. But the bottom of it said the information came from Beckwith's diaries, which are on file at the National Cave Design in New York City.
Wow.
Yeah, so I thought, hot dog.
You've got to read that.
Now, and I thought, now I know where I gotta find out. I gotta find out, because there's got to be some explanation for this, some rational explanation. So I went home and I wrote to the National Cave Design in New York and asked if I could view his diaries. And so about a week later, 2 weeks, so I got a letter from him and said, no, his diaries are much too fragile. But there is microfilm. They have a microfilm. You can get them from the Smithsonian, the archives of Smithsonian on microfilm, as you do with the interlibrary loan. And so I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get these. Somehow I'm going to find out how I do this stuff. There's got to be some rational explanation. So anyway, so I went to the library and asked for the loan. But then after, they said, it'll be about a week or so. So I went home and got the tape out. I started listening to the tape.
The regression tape.
The hypnotic session tape. And I wrote down everything that could be proven or disproven that I had seen or said. I found there are 28 facts that are things of people, dates, places that I could be proved or not proved. But so I thought, but then at this time though, I wasn't looking for the proving factor. I was looking for one or two things that happened that were wrong. In other words, I said that Beckwith didn't have children because the wife couldn't have children. Now, if he did have children, then this is not real, you know.
Yeah.
And I saw him drink wine at the outdoor cafe.
Yeah.
If he's a teetotaler, then this is not real. There's something wrong, because you could not have something like that in a memory that was totally wrong. That's what I was looking for. So anyway,
you were ticking off the list.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, but unfortunately, this time I'd already ticked off 10 out of the 28 things as being valid. But I kept thinking, I'll find the one. I need to find one or two big things that were wrong. So anyway, so about a week later, the library called and said, your tape's here. So I went down to look at it. I didn't realize Beckwith was a very avid diary keeper. Started when he was 19, made his last entry when he was 65. It was 9 spools of tape, 17,000 pages.
Gosh.
Of diary. Now, what do you do with 17,000 pages of diary?
What did it feel like, though?
Now, I think this is an important moment. Listen to how many pages he says.
So that's about a week later, the library called and said, your tape's here. So I went down to look at it. I didn't realize Beckwith was a very avid diary keeper. Started when he was 19, made his last entry when he was 65. It was 9 spools of tape, 17,000 pages.
17,000 pages. And what is he in his current lifetime? A writer. Has all these diaries. He's a writer now. I mean, again, the creative outlet is running through, but it's crossing between that lifetime and this lifetime. It's a big, big moment, in my opinion. And gives further credence to the story that he's telling about his past life.
Gosh.
A diary. Now, what do you do with 17,000 pages of diary?
What did it feel like, though, to... I mean, I guess at this point you were still trying to disprove it, but to
I was trying to
read
prove it. How do you
a diary that you had written.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do? I mean, so finally, I didn't know what to do, to tell you the truth, but I thought she said that in the diary, also included there was an autobiography he'd written. I thought, good, read that. That'll give you the facts. Unfortunately, he started the autobiography in the spring of 1917. He was living in California. He was really sick. He had endocarditis, which is an infection of the heart valves. He didn't know it at the time, but that's when he had all the symptoms of it. But that's why he died of endocarditis. So anyway, so I start looking. There's nothing in that. But then, for some reason, I'm not sure why, part of his diary had been excerpted and typed, and I'm not sure why they did it. But anyway, one of the parts was talking about a summer he spent in Venice when he was out of art school, and he said he lived the whole summer on burnt eggs and wine. So I'm checked off another thing about him drinking wine.
Right. But
anyway, so you got 17,000 pages.
I think Steve Scott brings up a good point. 17,000 page diary. Must have had an exciting life. Like if you're looking at the images I put up, like basically the guy, at least from our understanding, he, wanted to be a painter, but he basically did it to survive. And if you look at some of them, it seems as if he, was all over the place. Like there was one, I think, in Rome. I mean, so it seemed like here, Rome. Like, I mean, who knows what the reason is for this painting? But, it's from our understanding, it seems like he was hired for a lot of jobs. I mean, just look. I mean, this is all a lot of stuff. Duke of Marlborough, or Marlborough, Portrait of a Puppy. I mean, he's, doing paintings for some bigwigs. So he must have been able to see a lot. Or they sent him things along the way. But, make of it what you will. I just find it interesting that, you're right, Steve. It's like a 17,000 page diary. It's like, whoa, what in the hell was going on with this guy's life? And it would be awesome to hear some detail about those diaries. But I guess that would be up to Robert to furnish to us and at least condense, because I know I'm not going through 17,000 pages, and I don't blame Robert if he doesn't go through it. But I bet he, if Robert did go through a lot of that, he would probably have all sorts of crazy flashbacks or some sort of big realizations about things he did in that past life. I don't think many people are fortunate enough to have access to that kind of in-depth journals or about one's life in a past life, and on top of it, know that it's their past life. I mean, that is huge. I mean, I know if it was my past life, I'd be digging through all that, but I guess it depends on the person, and clearly Robert is dedicated and has put a lot of time in all this, and was determined to prove himself either right or wrong. So it would be interesting to hear if he approached the diaries and also get some feedback on top of that as to like if there were these massive moments of connection with that past life. So anyways, yeah, be interesting to reach out to him, right? And see what he thinks about that, because he doesn't really elaborate too much on this, but a little bit, but not much.
About a summer he spent in Venice when he's out of art school, and he said he lived the whole summer on burnt eggs and wine. So I'm checked off another thing about him drinking wine.
Right.
But anyway, so you got 17,000 pages. What do you do? So I finally decided it's time to get some outside input in this. You need to talk, because that's a lot of pages to read, awful lot of pages to read. So I finally decided it's time to involve my wife in this. Again, she was an excellent detective. So I finally it's time to tell her. Well, her reaction was not what I expected. She thought I was nuts. I told her what I had found and what I thought, and I was investigating, and she really thought I was nuts. She said, "No, we said you suggest that you've seen a movie or a book. There's a book backwards, a movie about him. That's where we saw it. There are no. He was simply not famous. He was really just a very minor artist in those days. He simply made his money painting portraits. He didn't ever do any really landmark painting. So anyway, I told her, no, it's true. Finally, she said, okay, look, Bob, you're too involved in this. Let me investigate. So I'll look into this. I'll find where you got this information from. Now, actually, I was kind of hoping for this. Because one of my biggest admonitions to all my detectives when I was in homicide was, don't get yourself emotionally involved in your case. If you get yourself emotionally involved in your case, you cannot see straight.
Because you really
can't. You overlook too many things. If you become emotionally involved, you overlook too many important things. And boy, I was really emotionally involved in this case. I knew that. And I'd always told my detective, don't do it. So I need an outside person with detective skills to look at what I'd done and to look into this case and see. I thought and so my wife said she was going to do it, and I thought that was great because she was.
And she was in child protection, so you would really have to detach.
Yeah,
yourself.
And she was even more wanting to be wrong than even I was. So anyway, she did it for about a month, but basically come up with nothing, absolutely nothing more than I had. So I'm talking, and finally she said, we sit down and talk. She says, Bob, listen to me. I couldn't find. You're right. Maybe, who knows? Maybe you have to come on to something astounding here. Maybe something, but shut up about it. Police captains don't talk about this. Police captains don't go spouting off about living past lives and They just don't. Police captains are basically the backbone of the department. You really are the backbone, because all the higher ranks, deputy chief, assistant chief, all come from the group of captains. That captain is your permanent rank. The rest of them are just appointed. You're there at the pleasure of the mayor. You can be chief for a while, then you bump back down to captain. But the captains themselves are backbone of the department. And you don't go the captains don't go spouting off this new age stuff about past life. So just shut up. And I thought about it for a while, and I thought, boy, you know what? She's
Do you
right.
listen to your wife?
Yeah, I listened to her because I thought she's right. This is going to get me in trouble. So I said, I'm just going to forget about it. So I sent.
And it did get him in trouble.
The film back. I said, I'm just going to forget about it. So I sent the film back and all that. And I thought, at that time, I was writing this was actually before I started writing books. I was writing a lot of articles for various magazines. And I thought, well, I thought I was going to get back to doing that again. But I'd been kind of stopped doing it while I was investigating Beckwith. And so I thought, well, I'll just start writing a magazine article. Well, I was doing a magazine article on line of duty deaths in small police departments. And so we just recently had an officer killed. And I wanted to talk to one of the officers who'd been first there to get, it was actually a police captain. She had been the first person on the scene, get her reaction to what she felt, what she saw and everything. Mm-hmm. So I could use it in my article. So I was talking to her, and while I'm talking to her, she tells me about having this out-of-body experience while she's at the scene of the murder. She says she arrived at the murder scene, and the officer's laying, and he'd been shot with the chest with the shotgun, and he was dead, of course. He was dead. And she suddenly realized that she didn't know where the shooter was. And said the next thing she knew, she was floating above the body and seeing it. And I'm thinking, I've been a policeman for about this time for over 20 years, and I'd never heard anybody talk about stuff like this.
You don't talk about things like that.
Yeah, I did. And she seemed very matter of fact about everything.
Okay, so seriously, guys, how does this seem to be? I mean, like I talked about when we were talking with Dan. This is, to me, textbook Matrix marketing department tactics. I'm sorry, it screams it, because everything is just lining up so perfectly for him. And then what's the end result? No offense whatsoever to Robert at all. Okay? But it seems like it was meant to be, because it was. And in a time when information is so skewed and messed up, and you don't know the difference between up and down and left and right. And what it does is, it just further confirms the existence of the Matrix reincarnation soul trap. And, again, I mean, no offense whatsoever to Robert. It is what it is. Just like we've seen with so many NDEs, it's all about getting this information out there by any means possible. And it may link to a person's life script. And so make of it what you will, but it seems fairly cut and dry, at least in my eyes. Again, you got to use your own discernment here.
I was just amazed. So it wasn't maybe a couple weeks later, I'm in federal court and we're waiting for a case. Now in federal court, because witnesses, of course, can't be in the courtroom. You're in another room, so you can't hear the evidence. Would bias your testimony. So me and another police captain, some other people sitting there, and he's talking about one time where he and his partner had been on a run, and they were in a drugstore, and the guy come in the drugstore and said, hey, some guys hold up the supermarket next door. You need to get over there. So he and his partner ran over there, and sure enough, there were about a half dozen guys with guns holding the supermarket up, and they started shooting at him. And of course, they backed out of the supermarket, and were having a gunfight. And he talked about having an out-of-body experience during the gunfight. And I'm just flabbergasted, because I haven't heard anything like this. And all of a sudden, he's talking about how he said he thought he had died, and his soul was looking at what happened. What actually happened is they'd called for backup. The backup arrived, and they got all the bad guys. Mm-hmm. But during a shootout, he said he saw himself floating above the scene, watching what was going on. And again, I'm flabbergasted. So I started doing some real discreet inquiries on the police department. I found that the police officers, as a rule, have quite a few paranormal experiences, almost always during moments of stress. And I found a number of other cases, similar cases, that's happening. And I decided, hey, this is bull.
No, I mean, this is ridiculously accurate. Ridiculously accurate. In moments of high stress, why do you think people who call out to Jesus or whoever, whatever their deity is, in times of stress, in times of, the pinnacle of depression and anxiety and just horrible life experience, why, or mom or dad or grandpa or grandma or the dog or the cat, all of a sudden come flying into their lives and have a little sit down with them like they're the mafia. It's like they're the freaking mafia. Oh, we're going to have a sit down. Going to make you an offer you can't refuse. I mean, seriously, this is the type of shit we're dealing with. This is what we're dealing with, folks. And oh my God, when I think about the horror stories that I have heard about people being at and so many we've covered here, right? I mean, how many have we covered? People who go through absolute hell, have an experience, and then it's like, boom, everything is switched within a moment of them having this breakthrough, incredible experience that the Matrix provides to them. It's because of where they are at in their life in that moment. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be an NDE or a breakthrough trip or an OBE, or it doesn't matter what it is. It could be just, you steaming in your room, having you at your pinnacle worst. Pick your few worst moments. And if you initiate contact for calling on Jesus or whoever, well, guess what? Or Buddha or Muhammad or whatever. Well, something may likely respond. And that, in my opinion, is absolutely proven. To me, I do not need any more evidence because it's out there. It's clear that if someone has a hell of a time in their life and it's like the peak shittiness, well, the Matrix provides the comfort that someone requests. And if that's not a red flag, think about all the other, endless shitty moments that may pop in someone's life or whatever the case may be. And then nothing will happen then. But then when you're at your peak, when you're at your worst, when you really need something, the Matrix delivers it on a silver platter. It doesn't matter what the belief system is. As long as you're requesting it and you're at that moment, there's a high likelihood that you're going to get it delivered to you. Again, that is a Matrix tactic to keep us contained within the system, my friends. That's what it does. It's a way for us to come back and excuse this reality away. There is no more excuses for this shit show. And if you want to make excuses for it, by all means, go for it. Not my problem. Doesn't matter. But what matters the most is that you look out for yourself. Look out for you. You are number one. This is an individual journey through and through. And you have the power within you to push back the illusion and say, no, I am going to tap into my true essence when I leave here, do my own thing, and I don't want any interference. I don't want any illusions. I don't want any auditory, nothing, no sensory experience whatsoever. I just want to do me. I want my essence to come back and then see what the hell happens. That's it. That's it. What's wrong with that? And then say, I got to go to the light. I got to go with God. Well, what if it's not God? What if the light isn't God? What if the light isn't the creator? What if the light isn't Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad? It doesn't matter. If all that stuff is on the up and up, it can wait for you. But one thing that I've shown on this channel time and time again is that it is boom, boom, boom. This stuff is immediate. It is designed in a way to try and get you to make an irrational decision because you are transferring from the physical state to the etheric state, the astral state, the true essence state. And there's some sort of governor that exists even when you're leaving your body, okay? The whole point is to not just you shed the physical body, you shed the astral, whatever you want to call it, body, and get to that core. Get to the core. That's the most important thing. And have that be the case through non-interference, sovereignty, and liberation. And if the light and all this stuff is what it claims to be, well, then I'm wrong. But at least if you go with what I'm saying, it can't hurt. If it is God and Jesus and Buddha Muhammad, they shouldn't have to pressure you. And all we do see is pressure. Think about deathbed vision and visitations. Why are they prepping people before they've even freaking left here? Why are all these entities coming? And regardless of who you think they are, whether they're Jesus, Buddha, the deceased family, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, the pet, the dog, the cat, doesn't matter what it is, but it's coming and comforting them in their time of need. In their time of need when they're leaving. What if you say, hey, back up, let me do my thing, leave me alone, I want nothing to do with anything or anyone, and I am going to go and take my sovereign ass out of here and do what I need to do. And then if I'm wrong, okay, I'll come join you in the bullshit light, okay? But trust me, don't trust me. Nobody has to trust me. Everyone should be doing their own research. But the way I see it is this reality and the astral has proven itself, at least to me, that it is a shit show out there. And that if you think that, evil and bad and deception only exists here, well, you're in for a shit show of an experience. Because trust me, this is something I can say trust me on. It exists in the astral. This crap is going on all over the place, at least within the realms that we have access to with experiencer data. And if there's some denial there, well, that is something that has to be looked at deep within. But just put it aside and say, okay, FC, if you're wrong about everything, at least I tried. At least I did what I needed to do for myself. Right? Can't hurt. Nobody has all the answers. I don't pretend to have all the answers. All I know is something is rotten. Something is really messed up here. Something is really rotten and messed up in the astral. And nothing fits. Nothing is as advertised. What you're told in the astral, everything's love and light and rainbows and unicorns and fairy pixie dust and all this horse shit. Everything that you're being told there does not align with what is going on here and what they try to tell us is going on here. None of it aligns. And as long as you can see that, just take the time to do the research on your own. Plow through all these experiencer cases. Might take a year, might take a couple years. It all depends on where you're at and how much of this stuff you've looked into. But I promise you, if you just hang in there a little bit, you'll see it. And, my channel should only be a stepping stone. Wayne's website at Tricked by the Light should only be a stepping stone. Dan at OverWatchProject.com and Overwatch Channel here on YouTube and Overwatch Project on Odyssey. All of us should only be a stepping stone. Because everyone should be doing their own research to prove this to themselves. Because this is the only thing I can promise is that if you're out there listening and you're new here, this is a topic you just came into, depending on where you're at in your own personal research over the years, I promise you, if you just dedicate a little time to this topic on your own in conjunction with what the three of us are talking about, you will prove it to yourself with an open mind. You will. I promise. So please, 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 you owe it to yourself. This is the most safely guarded, hidden truth of our existence. And they're coming for it. They're coming for it. They're attacking it as we speak. Okay? And trust me, I got, Dan and I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the stream. And there are some recent developments out there about this topic. And I mean, I don't mean to, go too far off, but there are some recent developments about this topic that seem abundantly clear to be a diversion and an attack on common sense about this type of research. And it's designed in a way to get you to fall into the trap and further be, washed away in its illusion. Again, everything is an illusion. But you know what? It's not an illusion when you're living through it. Like, I got Lyme disease. I don't like to fret on it too much. It sucks. What happened sucks. The whole disease is crap and how it came about. But you know what? It's my last time. I feel great. I'm just going to do my thing. And, I'm going to enjoy this last run around here. And I think everyone should do that. Everyone should enjoy their last time. And do what they need to do. Enjoy what you want to enjoy. Have fun. And do what you feel is best for you. But don't fall victim to the illusion and the deception of the sensory experience, because that's exactly what they want us to do. Trust me when I say this. I've looked at so many experiencer accounts that there's two things going on. If with deathbed visions and visitations, near-death experiences, breakthrough trip reports, who reach a status where they are having something like an NDE or on their deathbed with deathbed visions and visitations, they are most likely not dealing with their loved ones. That's my opinion. Now, could they be? Sure. But here's the other catch to this. If they are, in fact, dealing with their loved ones, so say it is mom, dad, grandpa, the cat, the dog, whoever, Jesus, Buddha, God, fine. But what are they stuck in? They're stuck in the illusion. They're stuck within the matrix. So they might as well not be real. And that's a really tough thing to say. I don't take any pride or happiness out of saying that and putting that out there. But the point is if they are stuck in the matrix and are believing in the illusion, then what are they going to do? They're going to come down and they're going to say, hey, son, hey, daughter, come with me. It's almost your time to go. And what do they ask? They ask them to go through the tunnel into the light. That's what they say. If that isn't enough a red flag, I don't know what is. And this reverts back to how everything is on an individual journey with each and every one of us. That is key. We cannot, look, call it cold-hearted. All right? I don't enjoy saying this, but you know what? Everyone is on an individual journey. And it is up to each and every individual out there to figure out the deception that is going on in this realm and in the astral realms on their own time. And if it's not their time to figure it out, sadly, that's on them. But trust me, everyone in time will figure it out, whether it's next lifetime, 10 lifetimes, 100 lifetimes, 1,000, 2,000, I don't know. But everyone has this burning desire within themselves to liberate and get out of this mess. I promise that. but we just don't know what it consists of for each individual. We don't know when everyone got here. Like, you can have a son or a daughter, and maybe they just pulled up here. Maybe it's their first incarnation. Maybe it's only their second or third incarnation as a human. Who knows? Nobody knows what each person or what each being essence has been through and what they've experienced. And why is that? Because of the veil of forgetfulness. This is the problem. We all fall victim to this freaking veil of forgetfulness, so we have no clue what the hell is going on. We don't know why we are here, where we came from, or where we are going. And that all stops now. It all stops now. It's time for us to stick up for ourselves and do what's right for us as an individual. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's up to our friends, our family, or everyone else to do on their own. See what I'm saying? That's all. So there's my rant for the night. Thank you. I also wanted to just say really quickly, a big thank you to Ken Albert for the very kind super chat. Thank you so much, my friend. I'm sorry I just saw that now. Thanks, Ken.
Number of cases this happening. And I found that the police officers, as a rule, have quite a few paranormal experiences. Almost always during moments of stress. And I found some number of other cases, similar cases that's happening. And I decided, hey, this is bull. If they can talk about it and everything, and they're talking about it, they're not embarrassed to talk about it, I can talk about it back with. So what I did was I reordered the microfilm and I had it made in a hard copy. Because you only had 2 weeks with this film, and there's no way you go through that much pages. And it took me almost a year. But I went through every single page of his diary. Now, and as it turned out, I was able to prove. At first, I was able to prove 26 of the 28. There was 2 of them that were left in question. I was later able to do those. But what really swung me over, because I kept finding one affirmation after another. Okay, this is true. This is true. This is true. And finally, I got to December. I think it was December 5th, 1886. And Beckwith was talking in his diary that his mother was in church that day and died of a blood clot. Now, I knew there were women important in Beckwith's life, be it his wife or his mother. His mother was, she was kind of her favorite, and she always encouraged him in art to be an artist. His dad always said he didn't know a better way to starve to death than being an artist. His dad didn't encourage it at all, but his mother did. He loved his mother dearly. So I knew that the person who he said died of a blood clot had to be a woman important to him. And December 5th, 1886, his mother died of a blood clot.
Gosh,
I think that was
another tick off the list.
That was one swung me over. I mean, you can know a lot of things. You can even guess things about a person. You can make some guesses. You can't guess 28. There's no way. And how in the world, other than his diary, where would his mother's cause of death ever be recorded?
Yeah.
I mean, again,
too many coincidences. I mean, they're not coincidences.
Yeah, way too many. I think that was probably the thing. When I found that entry, that was it. I knew that where this thing was going. I was not going to find the disproving fact. And other than that, I was actually going to prove it. I was basically able to prove all 28 facts I'd looked.
I was able to prove all 28 facts. Really, that is massive right there. This guy went in kicking and screaming the whole way through. Didn't want this to be true. And ends up check the whole way through. Really, it's says a lot.
Not going to find the disproving fact. And other than that, I was actually going to prove it. I was basically able to prove all 28 facts I'd looked on there. So I basically decided this is time to write the book, and I ended up writing my book about my experience.
And you talk about in your book, it was very confronting of you to visit his grave.
Oh yeah. Well, I was in New York. Again, while I was writing the book, I got a contract with the book, and I was writing the book. So I went to New York to see if I could find some of the sites where he'd been at. There was nothing left. Everything Beckwith had wrote about in his diary was in the 1800s, early 1900s, and it was all gone. Everything had been replaced. But I found out he was buried in Kensico Cemetery, which is in Valhalla, New York, which is a suburb of New York. So I had one day left. I did my research. It was actually easier than I thought. because Beckwith had said in his diary about doing scrapbooks. He done a lot, how he's working on his scrapbooks and what have you. I found out they were to New York Historical Society. So I thought he had he had like 10 or 12 scrapbooks, but it turned out they were mostly articles about him for places. There'd be one incident, and it'd be like 20 different articles for different papers. So going through the scrapbook, trying to be each I thought. So I had an extra day there. I thought, well, wouldn't it be kind of fun to go visit my grave in Kinskill Cemetery? I mean, come on, how many people get to visit their grave while they're still alive and their body's there? So I took a train up to Valhalla and went to Kinskill. Kinskill is a huge cemetery. A lot of famous people buried there. It's a beautiful cemetery.
Now this is where it gets, wild again. And it's really just hear it out here. I don't mean to interrupt here.
Took a train up to Valhalla and went to Kinskill. Kinskill is a huge cemetery. A lot of famous people buried there. It's a beautiful cemetery. So anyway, I went to the office, got a map of where Beckwith's grave was, and started going there. And the interesting part was that I started walking, get there, and I found the grave. But I found when I got close to the grave, especially up on the grave, I got this terrible, terrible anxiety attack. I mean, it was sweating, heart beating crazy. And interesting, I found when I was a new police officer, whenever I would get into a really scary situation, my left knee would just shake like crazy. It would just shake. It really would. And this was all over again. This was me. I was sweating. I was heart beating. I couldn't hardly breathe. My left knee was just shaking uncontrollably. When I stood next to the grave, and I couldn't understand this. I'm thinking, it couldn't be ghosts. Whatever spirit was in this man's body is in mine. Why would this? I couldn't understand why, but it was just unbelievable control. So I finally, what I did, I saw there were men working on some hedges, some workmen from the cemetery. So I wanted to get a picture of me standing at the grave, sure, but I wasn't scared. So I went and asked the man, "Did you take a picture of me at the grave?" Funny enough, when I walked away from the grave to go to ask the man to take a picture, it all left. The anxiety completely left. So I went to ask him, "Would you take a picture of me at this grave?" So he said, "Sure, sure." So I went back, and again, it's just the knee shaking, the sweating, the the heart palpitation, and it took this guy forever to take his picture. Just take the picture, take the picture. And I never can figure out why that would be. I have no explanation for that. But once I left the grave, again, no problem at all. But just standing on the grave gave me the awful, terrible anxiety attack. And I have no idea. I have all people give me all these esoteric explanations for it. I don't have any explanation for it. I don't know why.
You might find out one.
Okay, so what's interesting is that he kind of alludes to the fact that oh, maybe I shouldn't have been there. Maybe I shouldn't have been there. But through every step of the way, he was pretty much guided or went with his gut to make sure that he followed this whole thing all the way through. So make of that what you will, but it almost feels like this is like, I don't know, in my gut, I feel like this is like a Matrix early warning system saying, hey, what the hell are you doing here? Why are you here? But in the same breath, it's like, oh, it's like he was led there too. It's like the Matrix couldn't have handed it more on a silver platter than they did, or that he agreed to with his life script before he came here. So, I mean, this is just a hell of a case, guys. It just blows your mind when you hear it. And there's a lot of credibility behind it, at least in my opinion.
I have any explanation for it. I don't know why.
You might find out one day.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, but probably not in this life. It'll probably be as I passed on. But I have no idea why, because it's just a body there. The spirit is in that body.
Yes.
Is now in my body, and so why would you be nervous looking at a body? I don't understand it. But my body based on me, you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. Leave. Because once I leave, it all go away. But I go back, it come right back.
So you have no doubt that you, in a altered
How
life
could no?
was
I mean,
Carroll
there
Beckwith?
again, you can't. Yeah, there's no way. There's absolutely no way you could guess 28 things about a perfect person's life and not be wrong about a single one.
Mhm.
There's no way. I mean, you can make some guesses by age and where you died. Because what I was doing, I kept making these rationalizations. For example, when I found I died in New York City, I thought, well, what does that mean? A lot of people die in big cities don't mean nothing. When I found I died in the fall, I thought, well, come on now. A fourth of the people who die here died in the fall. I kept making these rationalizations myself that it didn't prove anything. But when you prove all 28, particularly, like I said, for example, I said we didn't have children. My wife couldn't have children. Well, on October 24th, 1888, which coincidentally was 28 years to the day before his death, his wife had a really serious miscarriage and could never have children because of it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You just can't guess these things.
And
You
it's
just
that
can't.
emotional feeling that you had. It was just
Yeah.
a knowing.
Yeah, you can't.
It was just a knowing, just an emotional feeling that he had. He was guided by the whole time by either something deep within himself that, linked to his detective abilities. But, again, I put forth that this is life script all the way, especially because of the doubts that lingered and were persistent throughout almost the entire time that we've been listening to this. Because of those doubts, it makes you say, okay, this is more like life script programming, at least from everything that I've researched. It seems to point directly towards all of that. So again, make of it what you will. Do your own research and check back. Feel free to leave a comment below on what you think is going on. I would love to hear it. And so we'll move on.
Just can't guess these things. These things just don't happen like that. That'd be, to guess them would be too big a coincidence to ever be a coincidence.
And your wife, how does she feel about it?
She was dead set against me publishing this book 100%. And she was right, because it pretty well ended my police career.
It wasn't well received by the police department.
No, but actually it's kind of funny. There's two sides to it. I had maybe 15 or 20 policemen come to my office and kind of look around, make sure everybody can see them and say, I always believe this. I'm really glad you did this. I really believed it.
Yeah.
Now the command staff, on the other hand, the chief and all the deputy chiefs didn't think this was very funny at all. They really didn't. And basically it condemned my career at the police department. It really did.
It condemned his career at the police department. And this goes back to what Dan and I were talking about earlier in the stream, and how the Matrix sets it up in a way that if you're born into the materialistic society thinking that this is all bullshit, and then of course you get into the job market and Christ, he is involved with policing, public safety, and these types of things people are locked up for. People are locked up for these types of things. And it doesn't matter, even if it's on the low end of the spectrum of, they could call it delusions, paranoia, mental health thing, all this stuff. And you can get locked up and not going to elaborate any further, but you guys know what I'm talking about. All sorts of bad things can happen. Luckily for Robert, that didn't happen. But of course, what occurred, he got pushed back. He got shit on when he didn't deserve that. Robert did not deserve that.
Because again, like my wife said, police captains don't go talking about this sort of thing. The really bad thing was we have a alternative newspaper in Annapolis called Nouveau. It basically publishes the kind of alternative news, and they interviewed about my book. Well, there's a box with a paper on it on probably every block on every corner down in Annapolis. Well, when they published my story, they had my picture on the cover. It said Karma. And believe me, that did not go over well with the police department. They have one of their captains on the front of Nouveau saying Captain Karma.
Captain Karma. I mean, that's just some weird shit, isn't it? I mean, that's just very, very strange to have that be the statement for the book. I want to thank Steve Scott so much. Thank you, Steve. That was so kind and generous of you. Thank you, brother. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the kind super chat.
To have one of their captains on said karma. And believe me, that did not go over well with the police department to have one of their captains on the front of Nouveau saying Captain Karma. So basically what happened is I got knocked out of homicide and put into a really meaningless job. It was
So see, he actually gets demoted. He gets treated like a little minion. Oh, he was a freaking captain, guys. A captain. And what do? I mean, I don't know what they did, but it's equivalent of what you hear on TV. Oh, we're sending you to desk duty. You know, you hear that on the shows all the time. It's supposed to be, you know, like, oh, you screwed up big time, so we're sending you to the desk duty. That's my translation for it. Basically, the guy got crapped on because he was telling his story and showed all the connections for it. And oh, he got a little press. Ooh, God forbid. I mean, my heart goes out to Robert. He didn't deserve that. Clearly, he's good at what he does. If he put this much attention into his case and everything surrounding all his experiences and was able to prove it, just imagine what he's doing pursuing something like a homicide case. Someone who desperately needs justice. And so what do? Oh, he got a little press. All right, you're demoted. Off into the corner with a dunce cap. Come on. That's so wrong. This is how this wacky reality works. It's just not fair. Not fair.
said karma. And believe me, that did not go over well with the police department to have one of their captains on the front of Nouveau saying Captain Karma. So basically what happened is I got knocked out of homicide and put into a really meaningless job. It was that basically put people before they retire, which I was kind of got the hint that was what they wanted me to do. They put me into a real meaningless job that meant to be maybe this time for you to retire, Bob. Basically.
Right. Well, so, I think you're very brave.
It was something I had to do. Too much information I got from Beckwith just kind of fell into my lap. It's kind of like the scrapbooks. Okay, I told you he had his reference maybe a couple hundred times about working on the scrapbooks and diary. I could not find where they were at. Finally, I was talking to an art dealer one time about Beckwith, and actually, when the art dealer was an expert he used to authenticate art. Apparently, there's a lot of forgery in American art, and it was an art expert, and we were talking, and she said, you know, his scrap out of the blue, and I didn't ask her. She said out of the blue, she said, you know, his scrapbooks at the historical site in New York City, don't you? And just again, information like it was just dumped in my lap. It's kind of like going to the art museum and seeing where about his diaries. It kept just being dumped in my lap, and I felt. And again, it's just to me, it felt too important. This is something that I had to tell about this.
All right, something I want to throw out there for those that have been around a long time. Speaking of art fraud, look, for those who've been around, there's this individual who's linked to something called Camelot, and he goes by the name of BILLRYAN. Look up what happened with him in art fraud. And the reason, I don't even like to advertise this stuff, but he was someone, and, I don't know what he's doing now, but I know he did some really shisty things to an individual in the state that I reside in with a painting. And he has been around a long time. And then, of course, there's another issue with someone else out there that is linked to that, but I'm not even going to go there. So, yeah, feel free to check it out. It's horrible. Horrible. This woman did not deserve what happened to her. I'm going to leave it at that.
Where about his diaries? It kept just being dumped in my lap. And I felt, and again, it's just, to me, it felt too important. This is something that I had to tell about this. It felt to me like too important a story not to talk about. And like my wife kept saying, take it to the grave, take it to the grave. But I really felt it was too important.
And have you located any of his other pictures, paintings?
Oh, the Beckwith paintings, if you ever seen his paintings, they're not that great. They're just simply not that good.
Okay.
And I'm not really an art expert of any type. I really don't know much about painting. I really don't know hardly anything about it, to tell you the truth. So it's hard for me to judge any kind of paintings at all, because I really have no real basis for it. Interesting enough, I've had a lot of people ask me, says, what's the meaning of all this? So what does this all mean? And I basically tell them, that's beyond my job. My job was an investigator. I'm not a philosopher or theologian. I can't explain it. I can only tell you what happened. The explanation for it belongs to the theologians and philosophers, not me. I'm just a police officer who knows how to investigate things. And that's what I did. That was my part of the job. And other than beyond that, I really can't tell you what it means. That's not part of my purview to explain what it all means.
I think as a detective, he could explain further what it means. Because, I mean, if you recall, all the way back to the beginning of the video, he mentions Dr. Raymond Moody. And, Dr. Moody was a huge part of my journey. And then everything kind of cascaded for Robert off of that book. I mean, it just kept going and going and going. And, Dr. Moody was a huge part of my journey. And if you're just getting into this topic, reincarnation is step one. And I highly, highly recommend near-death experiences reincarnation is step one, which is Dr. Ian Stevenson and Dr. Jim Tucker out of the University of Virginia Division of Perceptual Studies. But then you also have Dr. Raymond Moody, who was the man who coined the term near-death experience. And his work is incredible. Absolutely incredible. And he himself, I'm not going to go too long on this, but there is a NDE documentary out there and at the very end of it, he says, this is his quote. It's very close, if not exact. And when you finish your sentence here, blah, 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 blah. So even he realizes the truth of the soul trap by using that type of wordage. When you finish your sentence. Now, this guy is the leading researcher on near-death experiences. And he also is conveniently obsessed with Plato. Okay? And clearly, he has pieced it together, but is not outright saying it. What is going on? And that this whole experience is indeed a matrix reincarnation soul trap. So, Dr. Raymond Moody for NDEs, Dr. Jim Tucker, Ian Stevenson, check them out. Those are key pillars of the research in the beginning phases. And then, of course, checking out all of the channels like what you see tonight from Passion Harvest. There's a lot of great interviews out there. And she is, from my understanding, going to sit down with Wayne Bush and willing to put the soul trap on the table. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to be discussed. All I know is that Wayne told me that they're going to talk about it. And, I tip my hat to her. That is awesome that this topic is going to get further traction. I think it's really important that the information gets out there and that it's not skewed. And something I was talking about in the Discord today, and I think it's really important to continue to put this out there. If someone is talking about the soul trap, and they're not talking about sovereignty, liberation, non-interference, and creating your own realm that is impenetrable and incapable of being interfered with, then I'm not interested. I know that Dan and Wayne both stand by that. Now, could we all be wrong at the end of the day and maybe something else is going on? Sure. But is it worth risking? And I sure as hell am not going to promote someone who doesn't come from that mindset. If someone thinks that, going between the grid, as Wes Penray says, or doing all this stuff and being stuck in the illusion and in duality is the answer, well, just in my firm gut, no, that is all horseshit. Everything has to be approached through an individual approach. Everything has to be approached through an individual approach. You get what I'm saying? Individuality. That is the only solution I could think of. If things weren't so stacked up and so messed up here and in the astral, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And I would be a lot more chill about things. But because of how sick and twisted everything is and how this research has proved itself time and time again to not be our friend, but instead be anything but, waving red flags up, down, left, and right, that to me is of concern. And that's why sovereignty, non-interference, liberation, and creating our own realm that is impenetrable, everything is rooted around individualism and sovereignty. That to me is the most important approach to all of this. Because, again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If we're all wrong, we're wrong. All right? But at least we tried. At least we gave it a shot and said, hey, all right. And then if the light is the freaking answer, which it's not, I'm sorry, I just don't think it is. But if the light is the answer, so be it. All right? If the light is, quote unquote, God or the creator, blah, 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 so be it. But as long as there is no interference, no visual interference, no auditory interference, nothing. And at least we had a fair crack at liberating ourselves. Great. But until then, all I have is this limited perception within this human body. And I think that we're onto something. I really do. And the only way we're going to find out is when we leave here at the time of natural death. But anyone telling you that you got to go between the grid and you got to go down the hall and take a left and then sit in the waiting room and then go down that hall and take a right and then you're going to meet up with the Grand Pumbaa and they're going to let you through and all this horse shit. No. That is not sovereignty. That is not individualism. That is not the answer, in my strong opinion. I mean, to me, it's like the fact that this topic is being attacked as it is says it all. I mean, that to me speaks volumes. That this topic is under siege and that it is being ramped up. Whatever is going to happen over the next few years is going to be crazy. And all I hope is that the message gets out. And that's going to lead me into just one more thing, guys. Please, please, please consider signing up to the mailing list. I have an email list and, should something happen here, that's the best way to stay in touch. I also have 2 YouTube backup channels, but I'm going to be honest, shit hits the fan here. I mean, I already am fighting something right now with them and I hope to get it resolved, but I have an Odyssey, a Twitter and Instagram. There's some Instagram exclusive videos over there too, but just if you want to stay in touch and stick around and get this type of information, I don't know how long we're going to be able to do it. I really don't. I hope that we can stick around and continue to talk about this, but because the topic is under attack as we speak, I just don't know. Like, for instance, I'm just going to share something, and I really didn't want to talk about it because I'm trying to resolve it, but clearly I don't think it's going to happen, but keep my fingers crossed. Okay. So YT, I was doing a multi-test stream a couple weekends ago. Nobody had the link. No, it was just basically, I like this band, they're called Phish, Phish. Okay. Now this band, I've seen a bunch of times live. I love them. I grew up with them. Yeah, they're a system band, but the point is they're very talented. And the only reason I'm sharing all this is because I was trying to test out multi-streaming on other platforms. And so I put the title Phish and Chill, which was in reference to the band. And then I get a notification the following morning and I'm like, what the heck? And I get a warning. YouTube sends me a warning. And in the warning, this is the reason. Now wait for it. Okay. This wasn't because of the music. Normally, like some people who kind of know what's going on with YouTube and how they work with copyright and stuff, you would expect maybe it would have something to do with the music that I was playing. No. The policy that I violated was spam, deceptive practices, and quote unquote scams. So I responded to them and I said, I don't understand what the hell's going on here. I said, I didn't even think, like, the reasoning behind it all made no sense in the beginning. And so, I said, the only thing I could think of is that, I may have had my VPN activated and I had, for the first time, I think ever, created a stream in OBS. OBS is the streaming software that I use to talk with y'all and put the videos up and all that stuff. So it's something I've been using for about 4 years now. And so I thought maybe it had something to do with that. And then I put in my appeal, but not until a couple days later did I think, oh, Phish. So the band Phish, Phish, and then you have that whole thing with phishing. How people try to get people's identities and try to, they try to, scam people. So I didn't even think about that. And so then I reached out to YouTube support after they had already rejected my appeal. And so the person who I was dealing with was very kind, very nice. I don't have anything bad to say. All right. And it took a week. So I'm waiting for a week and I'm like, all right, as long as it's being looked at by a human being, I didn't care. And they still denied it. I left them the website. I left them the YouTube channel. And I said, look, I think that the algorithm mixed up what I was talking about. And they still denied the claim. They still held up the warning. So basically, the way YouTube works is you have a warning, you have strike 1 and strike 2 and strike 3, you're out. Okay. So the warning is kind of like a cushion. So I have made sure to be very, very careful. And I know many of you have seen it to the point of nausea. All right. That I try to be very, very careful. I know what flies and what doesn't here. And so the warning is kind of like a cushion. It's like, okay, if I screwed up, and violated the rules and knew I didn't have a fight, I would accept that. I wouldn't be happy about it, but at least if you have that warning, it's good to have set aside in case you do screw up and you're not necessarily aware of it, at least in the eyes of YouTube. So now if something happens, it goes immediately to a strike. So and that means, you can't upload a video for a week, or you can't live stream for a week, and then stuff like that. So the fact that a human actually reviewed this, if they did, and still came out the other end, and mind you, the video was private. It was not published. Nobody had a link. There wasn't even a chat. I was testing other streaming services to see if it would be able to run properly. So nothing was even put on the channel. I didn't even speak. I played just a music video of a concert. So again, but remember, the copyright in the music wasn't even the freaking problem. So exactly, that Seeking Truth put it out there. That's exactly the reason. That is why I am creating my own website. This is the reason. I first saw this coming. It's a problem. It's a problem. So please consider, if you want to continue to get this information. I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, if you can sign up for the email list, that's probably the best bet for us to stay in touch for now, and the backup channels. But the backup channels, they're linked to this account. I mean, for all I know, they can wipe all those out too. And I have the Instagram and the Twitter. But probably the mailing list is the best, but Twitter's good too. And if something happens, I will keep you guys updated, but I would not rely on this place. And that's where the website's going to come in. It's been a lot of work, and it's still a work in progress, but my hope is to be able to have something that is workable, and also hopefully still have YouTube at the same time, and say, okay, well, let's try and migrate over here a little bit. But, if something happens, it's available. But personally, I like the way YouTube is set up. I do. I like the convenience of everything, and how, if you streamed on YouTube and you did stuff on this platform, how user friendly it is, and how it's good quality and it's free. I mean, so there's something to be said. Whereas a website, you gotta maintain it and you gotta hire people and stuff, so it gets a little old after a while. So I don't want to keep rambling too much. I'm sorry, guys, but the reason why I'm saying all this is that I hope that you heard what I just went through, and I'm still going through, and I hope that it gets resolved. But I'm not counting on it. So please consider signing up for the email list. And I'll pop that in the chat now. And thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate it.
Well, it happened to you for a reason. I don't think anything happens by accident. How has it changed you?
Well, it gives me a different. There's part. Finding out this is all true wasn't the real hard part. The hard part is accepting what it means to your worldview. In other words, you have to accept that everything you believed in your life up to this point has been wrong. You believe, the things you believed aren't true. There's a whole different basis for reality that you didn't realize existed. And in a way, if you think about it, reincarnation is much fairer than other systems of belief. And the fact that, okay, this life, you may have a crummy life. You really do. But you have hundreds of different lives, and some of them you'll be Donald Trump, and some of them you'll be an untouchable in Calcutta. Everybody has the spread of where you have the great lives where you're rich and you're comfortable, and you have the lives when you're not so comfortable. So it's not, because you look at people and say, that's not fair. How come he has all this money, or she has all this money and all this power and all this great, and I don't? Or a person has all this talent and ability, and I don't. Well, it's one life. Yeah, you know what? The next life you could be they have all the talent and the ability. You could have it all. So and if you look at this life, for example, I worked a homicide, and an awful lot of youths get killed. We had an awful lot of young people get killed. You think this person is 17, 18.
And you think,
what a waste. They didn't. What did they get to experience? What did they get to experience? Nothing. And it seems if you believe in only having one life, it seems really unfair, doesn't it? Or I had a number of cases where fathers and mothers would murder infants. And you think, okay, what if you believe there's only one, you only get one life? What was the point? What was the point of this infant if dad or mom murdered him? But if you look at reincarnation, it's just one of hundreds of lives. It's not as important as you think, because you go on to other lives. You do other, once you're murdered, you go on and get to another life. that makes, to me, it's a much fairer, and to me, it fits more the facts of what you see in the world.
No, it's really well, when you really boil reincarnation down, it's much fairer depending obviously on the life that you're living currently, because that's what you're aware of, right? But we don't know the horrors that we've been through prior to coming in this lifetime. Some of us may have gone through past life regressions. I know I've had a few, but the point is that is a minimal amount of information that you're going to get in comparison to the big picture of, you get isolated pockets and stuff like that in a regression. But with the overall big picture, who knows how many lifetimes we've been dealing with this BS? Seriously, we have no clue whatsoever. We don't know. So what may be good now doesn't mean that it'll be good tomorrow. For all we know, we can, wake up in next lifetime and be born in North Korea, or Saudi Arabia. I mean, who knows where you can end up living? Who knows where we have lived and what we have dealt with? But because of the veil of forgetfulness, that sneaky little veil of forgetfulness that creeps on in lifetime after lifetime, depriving us from where we came from, why we are here, where we are going, and, everything that happened before this freaking moment that we're sitting in here right now, it leaves us high and dry, incapable of possibly comprehending the big picture. And then, like I mentioned earlier, they try and hit us up on our deathbed. They try to get us to go to the tunnel and go to the light on our deathbed. So there's not even wiggle room. Okay, now not everyone is going to experience a deathbed vision visitation. I think it has to do with each individual and how that all works out, and of course their resolve and maybe their belief system. I feel that the Matrix sends those types of situations to someone on their deathbed if maybe it's in doubt. Maybe it's saying, we don't want this one running loose. We don't want this one to start thinking for itself for even a second. Who knows exactly how prevalent these things are, referring to deathbed visions and visitations? We don't know. But from my understanding, it's pretty common. Pretty common. It's up there. Okay? So it is the perfect tool to get us to continually just not ask questions and blindly obey and say, mom, dad, kitty, doggy, whoever, grandma, grandpa. Okay, I'm coming. All right, I'm going to go to the tunnel with you. I promise. And boom, boom, done, off. Memory wipe, or life review, memory wipe, boom. Okay, you're out of here. Back to the conveyor belt and back on Earth for another incarnation. Screw that. Screw that. We deserve to do what we need to do for ourselves without being interfered with in any way, shape, or form. Sovereignty, liberation, non-interference. That's the keys of the kingdom, my friend.
Reincarnation does, then the belief there's only one, you get one life, that's all you get, and when you're done, you're done. Because some people, you get people who are born with disabilities, people are born, or you have children who have cancer. You think, where's the fairness in that? If you're 9 years old and you're dying of cancer, where's the fairness in the world? Where if you believe in reincarnation, you realize this is just one of a couple hundred lives, or maybe more. I have no idea how many you live. I'm just assuming this. I mean, okay, what's it mean? It means, okay, you spent that life, you go on to another life where you live to your 100 this time. Who knows? So to me, there's a much more fairness.
Sounds like a nightmare.
In reincarnation than other belief systems.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it. I was just thinking, I think it's a really interesting experience that we do experience lives with other people over and over again. You talked about your stepdaughter in this current life who you felt was your daughter.
Now, see, that's interesting. And I don't mean to cut her off at that moment, but I think it's important to talk about this. That the research that I put forward on this channel, if you want to check it out, the cover to cover commentaries of every page from Michael Newton's Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. I think it's important, if you're new here, consider checking those out in order. Journey of Souls first, Destiny of Souls second. You do not need to have it up on a screen. You can just listen to it. I know a lot of people listen to the channel at work. You don't need a visual really for anything that's on this channel. Once in a while you do, but very rarely. And those videos, there's specific playlists that are available for those, and consider check them out. And what they show is that we are reincarnating with the same soul group. It's very, very consistent that we're involved with the same soul group. And so one lifetime, you may be playing the enemy, and the next lifetime, you may be playing the loving savior. And the roles can go reversed. And same with the roles of the people that you're dealing with within that soul group. So someone that may have been your wife or your husband may be your son or your daughter, or your lover, your enemy, and vice versa. And we keep playing these role reversals. And it may depend on the individual and what's agreed to and how the whole life script works. For some, it may be this constant battle that we're going over time and time again. Who knows? We don't know the exact details, but what we do know is that we seem to be involved with this same soul group, like our parents, our wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, all this stuff, and son, daughter, and on and on and on. So, make of it what you will. Good night, PKOSB. Good to see you, sister. Sleep well.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it. I was just thinking, I think it's a really interesting.
Or I'm sorry, good night, Seeking Truth.
So to me, there's a much more fairness in reincarnation than other belief systems.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it. I was just thinking, I think it's a really interesting experience that we do experience lives with other people over and over again. You talked about your stepdaughter in this current life who you felt was your daughter.
Yeah, I don't, that was the only one. I've read a number. Actually, I really often did a little researches when I was writing the book and searching for things. An awful lot of people have lives where they experience with a person they know now, or they have had several lives with someone they know now. And it's, apparently you're good friends in this life and the afterlife both. Now, my own one I saw again was my stepdaughter, and it was interesting because I abandoned her at the same age she was when I married her mother and took her as my daughter. So it's kind of like you're finishing something. You abandoned her when she was 4 or 5, and you took her back when she was 4 or 5.
That's a beautiful way to think about it.
You're trying to balance things out.
Yeah,
that was the only one I recognized. Yeah, that's the way I looked at it. I mean, that's my explanation anyway.
And what does the visual image of Carroll Beckwith? Do you have any physical similarities, characteristics?
Nah, people say so. I don't know. I don't think so. Okay. I don't know. There's I'm trying to think of it. Walter. I'm trying to his name. He does. He's done other books on people. He believes they carry their physical traits on from life to life to life. They look like each other. And I would think, what would be the purpose of that? Why would you want to keep looking the same in every life if you're experiencing different things and different experiences? But I don't think so. Other people may think so. I don't.
Yeah, that's just a personal thing. Robert.
Okay. Something I would like to just put out there. Look, I'll put up the website. Okay. This is Walter's website. He's got a lot of great content on here, but he also, in my opinion, I'm not crapping on Walter, but I'm just saying I think he reaches a little bit on the physical comparisons. Now, mind you, this is a case that, in my opinion, is confirmed because of Robert's work here and because of how diligent he was in going through his experience, his past life regressions, and being able to find answers. Okay. But if you go to Walter's website, which is titled ReincarnationResearch.com, a lot of it is based on physical appearances. And for me, I guess I'm not connecting with the information as much as some people are. But he does have a lot of good information up there. You just, use your discernment like anything else. And I'll leave it at that. So, I'm not someone who is necessarily going to, I've gone through a lot of his website, but not necessarily on board. Okay. So make it what you will. It's a good site because there are a lot of great resources. Again, it's ReincarnationResearch.com.
Bob Snow, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the Passion Harvest audience that I haven't asked you?
No, I think I pretty well covered it, yes.
You did very well. Well, thank you so much. And I think you're very brave and the book's fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Again, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. And for anyone that's listening or watching, your details will be in the show notes.
Okay, so I would like to give another big thank you to Robert Snow, Robert L. Snow, and Passion Harvest for the video today. Thank you so much. Passion Harvest does put out a lot of good interviews with experiencers, and I do highly recommend checking out the channel for research purposes. And from my understanding, like I mentioned earlier in the stream, I do think that at least Wayne is supposed to be coming on the show at some point. I'm not sure when they're going to be interviewing, but I thought it happened recently. I'll have to check in with Wayne and get a definitive answer on that. But from what I gather, she reached out to him. So I really tip my hat to Passion Harvest for doing that and being open to allowing Wayne to come onto the show and share his information, because Wayne Bush at trickedbythelight.com is a must-see website. He is someone I cannot recommend enough. His website, if you're new to the information about the soul trap, it's a must-see. You'll get you'll be looking through that website for months and months, and there's endless amounts of information. I love Wayne. I think he's a great guy. He's one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And check out his website. If you need any further confirmation about the soul trap's existence, Wayne Bush at trickedbythelight.com is a must-see. And as we had Dan earlier on in the show, his channel, highly recommend his channel as well at OverWatchProject.com. And on YouTube, it is OverWatchChannel. And on Odyssey, it is also Overwatch Project. So check out Wayne Bush at trickedbythelight.com and Dan at overwatchproject.com as well. And I will also have a website coming out in the very near future. And like I mentioned please feel free to sign up to the mailing list. It's pinned in the comment above at the moment. And I'd like to just thank each and every one of you for sticking around tonight. I know it's been a little bit of a longer stream. We're over the 3-hour mark, and I'm just going to head on over to the questions. We got a few questions, I believe. Let me see what we got. Oh, I'd like to also, in the meantime, while I'm looking these up, thank Jimmy. Jimmy is a good friend of the channel and has done amazing work both during the streams and behind the scenes. Jimmy, thank you so much. I'd also like to thank Puya for his continued assistance. Thank you so much, my friend. All right, so let's see. We already talked about Mary's question. Quietus says, will you do a stream looking at David Icke's new book, The Trap? Yeah, this is a question I've been getting a lot, my friends, and I did send a email out to, and Dan and I kind of alluded to it in the beginning. I sent out an email, I think earlier last week, or this week just passed, to both Wayne and Dan that this needs to be addressed. Okay? David Icke's new book titled The Trap needs to be addressed. I have a copy of it on PDF. From what I understand, the physical copy doesn't come out until September 1st, and you can pre-order it. But with that being said, from my limited understanding, I did not go through the whole book yet. So, again, this is a surface level analysis. Do not take this as gospel. Okay. But from my understanding, David Icke's solution seems to be that, you got to get to 5D. Okay. Which, in my strong opinion, is more limited thinking and goes back to what I discussed earlier in the stream about how this is further matrix distractions. 5D, 6D, 8D, a zillion D, it doesn't matter. If there's distractions roaming about, to me, that seems nothing more than a recipe for disaster. Okay? Now, if David Icke came out, and maybe I'm missing it, maybe it's in the book, I don't know. But so far, I don't see it. But if David Icke started talking about non-interference, sovereignty, liberation, creating your own realm that is incapable of being messed with, things like that, if those were on the table, I would promote the book in a heartbeat. But from my limited understanding, over glancing at the book, his solution seems to be that, you need to get past the 4D, and the truth is at 5D. Okay? So, to me, as Dan and I were both alluding to in the beginning, this is something that needs to be addressed. It's an issue. Okay? And I did send out that email earlier in the week to both Dan and Wayne, where I hope that we can all get together at some point before the end of the year and discuss this book and his views. And if they're in favor of all those things I mentioned, sovereignty, liberation, non-interference, creating your own realm that's incapable of being messed with, then great. But I do not see that right now. What I do see is a lot of unnecessary information being put into a book that's titled The Trap. And I see mentioning that 5D seems to be the solution. Okay, so yes, there will be a video either from me or from Dan, Wayne, and myself together addressing this book. Because as Dan and I talked about earlier on, this topic is being infiltrated. Okay? That's the bottom line. And the timing of everything is very convenient, and I'll leave it at that. Okay? So make of it what you will. It's sad. Okay, so that was... I again wanted to give Ken Albert a big thank you for the super chat earlier on. Thank you so much, my friend. That's very kind of you. Okay, let me just go through here. Also wanted to give another big thank you to Steve Scott for his kind super chat. That was so kind of you. Thank you, sir. Very much appreciated. And let's see, I think there might be one more. We already addressed that question. Okay. Bell says, FC, what is your opinion on self-realization, aka enlightenment? Is this something worth pursuing or another trap? Okay, now the way I look at self-realization is we're in it right now. We're deconstructing the duality. We're deconstructing the insanity of this place. And what self-realization and enlightenment really is, in my opinion, is that we're born, okay? We go through life and we start to learn certain narratives that the Matrix pushes on us, either through school or our parents or our grandparents or whoever's in our lives, okay? And when that comes to pass, we are just sponges for that information. A big one that I like to talk about regularly that I recommend anyone who's just kind of new to the channel is the early childhood development video I did. That is jam-packed with a lot of video, and jam-packed with a lot of information that explains how susceptible we are to programming. And then you add in to the factor of the life script and the soul group and all this other stuff, and we come down here and then boom, we're smacked with indoctrination and we move forward. We are in a sense on autopilot. So until we connect with the larger portion of our consciousness, our essence, we are essentially kind of just going along to get along and doing what the Matrix taught us to do. So to me, breaking free of that is the beginning of self-realization. Self-realization is seeing this realm for what it is, realizing that we're in some sort of crazy illusion that even though, yes, we can feel and sense and go through all of this together and as individuals and still be in this physical form, the most important thing is that we are finding ourselves. And until we actively work on finding ourselves, the moment of self-realization, or at least the beginning of self-realization, only then is when we start to kind of take control of ourselves. So we're already, in my opinion, going through self-realization. Now, I think that truly involves seeing this realm for what it is and understanding that it's just some big, quote unquote, cosmic freak show or whatever you want to call it. And that our true self boils down to just pure existence. And I think that pure existence is in something like a void-like state. That's what I think that realization is. You can also achieve levels of self-realization through meditation. You can experience something very in tune or comparable to what the void-like state is, where your physical body's sitting here on Earth, in this realm, and you don't feel pain, you don't feel anything weird, you don't have, you're just you're just pure existence within the state of the void, your void-like realm. Now, There are also void-like realms that link to the Matrix. So there's that deception there. But if you're truly in this form of self-realization, this void-like state, you're not being messed with. Nothing's happening. Like, you are the master of your domain. And I think, again, just to rewind, the moments of self-realization begin with us when we start questioning not just ourselves, but the reality around us. So we're already there and already working on ourselves. And that, I think, is the biggest gift we can give ourselves. So I guess, a lot of the enlightenment that is advertised online is complete horseshit. I mean, I'll just say it. That's my opinion. I think everything comes down to the individual, and there's, I think fake enlightenment, things that I experienced. Excuse me, voice is kind of getting shot, but there are things that I experienced that were like super euphoric and amazing, and then super dark. And these were in moments of deep reflection and me questioning this reality, and it made me wonder, why are these types of things happening? And then you kind of realize later on, I didn't necessarily realize it at the time, but I realized it later on, that these are deterrents to either get you like on this massive spiritual / religious high, or get you into like the pits of hell type despair feeling. So it gives you the duality, the amazing euphoria, incredible awesomeness that is that experience, and then the pits of hell. I mean, and that's kind of like in these moments where you're teetering back and forth, finding yourself and, quote unquote, becoming enlightened, I guess you can say, and in moments of self-realization. So I hope that helped a little bit, Belle. But I think you're already there, my friend. Okay, I think that should be it for tonight. We've been going for a while. Thank you so much. We're at 3:20, almost 3 hours and 20 minutes. Didn't expect to go this long, but I had a great time. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. If you don't mind hitting the like button, if you found this stream valuable or of value to you, I'd greatly appreciate it, because apparently it can get the channel into more people's feeds. So thank you so much. I may see you tomorrow. I may not. Maybe next weekend. But I appreciate each and every one of you. I want to welcome everyone who is new and just came along. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves if I don't see you. And all the best. Much love.